Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action, and with a little time, just be patient, make a statement, try to enjoy your life. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing. Won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless. Make some progress, I can see that they compare. I think everyone's against me, maybe something in the air. Am I paranoid? I swear a void is forming and they're scared. I walk a straight path, not many can say that. I like to play fast, cross me and there's payback. You better pray that I don't see your face at any place that I go. I know you hate that. I've been doing fine, I'm not wasting any more time. I live for the fight and the climb. And I think that the pain that's deep inside is what defines. So I won't give up, I'm gonna make it to the top. I don't care what's in my way, I swear I'm never gonna stop. I could fall flat on my face and I swear I will get back up. Cause I don't deserve a thing and the road ahead is tough. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing. Won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless. Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action, and with a little time, just be patient, make a statement, try to enjoy your life. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown.
All right, what is up, Utes fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest, and We have quite a show for you guys tonight. Like I said, I called this the ultimate live show because I really think that's what it's going to be. We've got guests loaded up for the whole damn evening. Guys, I got my monster right here. We're gonna keep this going for a good 3 hours. This should be a great time. Buckle up. And of course, I got Dante Guardi waiting for me to let him on. Just before I bring him on, I am just going to go over something real quick. So the big giveaway we're doing this week for the Oregon game, some of you guys may have seen it, and I see all you guys saying, "What's up? Go Utes." I'm with you guys. This is about to be such a fun night, such a fun week, such a fun game. What this game means for Utah, what this game means for conference championship implications. It's a big one for sure. I'm with you guys 100%. So we're going to do a giveaway, and you guys might have seen this if you've been following the page. So we're going to be giving away a Cam Rising signed auto card, and it's a numbered card too, out of 99. So there's only 99 of these bad boys. Cam Rising, it is a sweet card, dude. It is a nice one, and it's going to be pretty simple how you can win the card. Not very complicated at all. What you're going to have to do if you want to win the card, you got to make sure you guys like the video. You got to make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. But then the number one thing is, like I said, we're going to be going for 3 hours tonight. So it's going to be a long time. It's going to test, how many questions I can ask people. Whoever is putting in the best questions all night, whether it's after or before or during the show, whoever's driving the best questions all night, that's how I'm going to pick the winner. It should be a great time. I'm excited to dive in. Dante, how are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you for having me on. Like always, forward to it, man. Like I'm not gonna lie, these last days it's been lingering in the back of my mind, just game, nonstop. It's like what's happened? Like we got game, things like that. So it's definitely there. We are week leading and good so far. Looking forward to be an in classic.
I'm not sure if I'm the only one hearing it, but you got like a weird double effect right now. It's like every time you talk, it's like it doubles it.
Huh.
Is anyone hearing that in the chat? If you guys could chime in, maybe that's just my computer, but I'm hearing it, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I've never had that happen before. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward. It should be sweet.
Awesome, man. It's happening again. I'll let you know in a minute if it's still happening, and then maybe hop back on. So we'll see though. We'll see. Don't even worry about it right now. And with that, yes, this should be an awesome night, guys. They said they heard it. Yeah. Something's going on there. Maybe I don't know what that is. Oh, you know what it is? You have your speakers on.
What do you?
I don't think you have your headphones in, so we're hearing your speakers or something. We're hearing something.
So whack. I do the same thing. Ever go on anything? How about now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
It sounds better, I think. Say something.
Hello?
Start talking a little bit.
Hello, my name's Dante. Go Utes.
No, it's doubling, man. Why don't you close it out and then hop back on? You want to give it a try?
All right. Yeah, I'll throw some AirPods in.
All right, cool. I'm gonna drop you off. Awesome, guys. Well, so we got him on, and actually we have our first guest hopping in now. Let's go ahead and bring them on. We got Michelle Bodkin here of KSL Sports. How you doing, Michelle?
Oh, I'm doing well. Just getting ready for this women's basketball game.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for joining us before the game. So excited to talk Utah Utes football with you, and I really appreciate you coming on. With that. So obviously there's been a lot of noise about Bo Nix. Is he going to be injured? Do you have any info on that? And if you do, whether you do or not, how big of a drop off is it going to be from Bo Nix to the guy behind him?
Well, I mean, the guy behind him is a 5-star recruit. Now, granted, Oregon's not too high on him. At least the fans aren't because of his performance against BYU. But we'll just kind of see what happens there. No real info on whether or not Bo Nix is going to play. Certainly, it feels like there's a little smoke there, I guess you could say. Yeah. People saying that they can't report on practice the way that they normally would. just some of that kind of stuff going on. So it'll be really interesting to see exactly, what that all means, if it means anything, if it's, just a distraction tactic, whether it's a real thing, hard to say.
No, it makes a lot of sense. So that's a good one. Dante, thanks for getting back on with us. Michelle, this is Dante. And
Hi.
so super cool.
Hi.
There. I'm excited for this game. Michelle, where are you leaning right now? I mean, it feels like to me the way they're foreshadowing this, that it feels clear to me that Bo is playing the way that they're acting like I feel like they're hinting that he's not, and I can't imagine that they would be doing that if he wasn't playing. So I feel like he is playing.
I think I would tend to lean towards he's going to play. I can't imagine that unless it was just something super serious that he would sit this game out. It's a big deal. This is a big game. It's not quite for all the marbles, but it's for the chance to play for all the marbles and real competitors. And I think Bo Nix certainly qualifies as one of those. He's not sitting out and missing that game. So I would tend to lean towards, I think he plays, but it's going to be an interesting thing to see come Saturday.
No, I'm with you 100%. So, Michelle, when it comes to the Oregon-Utah game, why don't you tell us kind of your thoughts? What do you think are going to be the big matchups to watch? Which parts of the ball is Utah going to do really well? Which parts of the game is Oregon going to do really well?
This is going to be a really interesting game from the little bit that I've looked into it early on. I put a couple of articles out the past couple of days. Oregon, I feel like based off of what I've looked into, Oregon's strength is not really exactly their defense. It is their offense. And it's going to be interesting to see how those two match up. I think the advantage on that side is Utah's offense. I think Utah's offense is better than what Oregon's defense presents. But the really interesting matchup is going to be between Oregon's offense and Utah's defense. They both rank as the top in the conference for offense and defense, and they're going to be going head to head. And so it's going to be really interesting to see, who actually is better on that front. Is it Oregon's offense or is it Utah's defense? You can argue that both maybe haven't necessarily seen, the best there is to offer as far as, an opposing offense or an opposing defense. And so, it's really going to be a head-to-head there, and that's kind of where I'm looking as far as what's going to determine things.
No, I'm with you 100%. One thing that I noticed leading up to the game and breaking down the tape, and Dante, you can comment on this as well, is obviously Oregon had a lot of yards thrown on them in this last game against Washington, right? That's going to skew this number a little bit. You guys might know what I'm hinting at here. They are right now the worst passing yards allowed team in the entire FBS. So obviously that number is a little skewed because of the Washington game, but I would imagine that means Utah is going to have a huge game. When you look at that, we're going against probably right up there with the most allowed in the entire country. What kind of game are we expecting from Cam, Michelle? What kind of game are you expecting from him?
To be honest, I kind of see it playing out more in the running game. And that's kind of another interesting matchup that if you go and you kind of look at the numbers and how things play out, Oregon has the number 2 rush defense, I think it was what it was. And Utah's number 3 in rushing, especially now with Tavion Thomas being back in the mix. So that's another matchup where it's okay, they're pretty close on opposite ends. Who's going to win that? Who's going to take that over? Is it going to be Tavion Thomas, or is it going to be, Oregon's rush defense, which is the part of their defense that actually is really good? I kind of expect that Utah will try and run the ball and really, kind of open things up so Cam can throw the ball and really take advantage of the fact that Oregon is not as strong on the passing end of it. If you're looking at a whole picture sort of thing, I feel like Utah's the more well-rounded team. But I feel that way when you compare them to UCLA. I feel that way when you compare them to USC as well. And it also feels like, at least from my vantage point, and, we'll see Saturday, I could be totally wrong on this, but it feels like Utah's really starting to peak right now at the right time. even with the injuries, even with having to get creative with how they use people to get the job done. Whereas it feels like some of these other teams that are also in the race with them have kind of already had their time, and they're maybe not quite as strong as they were. So I think that's something to watch. Who's peaking, who's on the rise, whose time is already come and gone.
No, and that's a great point. I feel like Washington definitely showed that maybe Oregon's time has come and gone. It's kind of cool to see them lose. I mean, obviously this game would have a little more hype, but it was cool to see them bleed a little. Know that they can bleed. Dante, what are your thoughts? A passing defense that looks like it could definitely be exposed by Utah. What kind of game are you expecting from Cam this week?
I'm expecting a big one, honestly. You guys great matchups such as Utah versus Oregon's offensive line and vice versa.
Hey Dante, I'm gonna meet you for a second, man. It's doubling again, man. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if you want to try resetting it. I'm sorry, man. It's like real bad. It's like a double echo every time you talk. I'm sorry, dude. This is really bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing anything different than before. Kind of wild.
I don't know. You want to Did you try restarting your computer?
My computer. I'll do that.
I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, whatever works, right?
Yeah, why don't you give it a try? We'll see if we'll see if it's working, man. Sorry about that. I'm gonna drop you off, Dante. All right. I don't know what's going on there, but anyways, yeah. So, with the matchup, Michelle. So, where do you think Oregon's offense is going to do well against Utah's defense, and where do you think Utah's defense might do a good job against Oregon's offense?
Utah's defensive struggle the entire season, and granted it's gone better, and so this is where it's going to get kind of interesting as well, is in the rush defense. It has not been a strength of theirs. It's something that they've really struggled against. Oregon is the number 2 rushing team in the entire Pac-12. So, I mean, they're good at running the ball, and they have a good stable of running backs to get that job done. Can Utah get a stop on that front? I think passing is going to be hard to come by. I think Utah's defensive backs have really shown that they can lock things down. And, I don't know that that's going to be where Oregon's really going to want to try and start, challenging and going after Utah's defense. And then the other interesting thing as well is, yes, the rush defense has not been Utah's strength. However, in the last couple of weeks, they have really started to get good at getting pressure on people. And they're now the number 2 team, I believe, in the Pac-12 in sacks. So whereas, the first half of the season, they had none. They had none. But they've since recorded 4 sacks against USC, who, has been credited as having a really great offensive line and has done a good job of protecting Caleb Williams. So 4 sacks, whereas I think before they played Utah, Caleb had only been sacked once, and Bo Nix is a very similar situation at Oregon. Their offensive line has done a phenomenal job of keeping him upright and protected, and I believe there's only 1 sack on the season. Can Utah, get that pressure again, kind of like they did against USC, and maybe, cause some chaos there?
No, that's a really good point. That's one of the things I was looking at. Obviously, Oregon, there's been a lot of talk about how good their offensive line is. It definitely is a really good unit. You look across all 5 spots, there's not really a weak spot. It's funny enough that one of their backup guards, he doesn't seem to be a starter. It's like Jackson Powers or something like that. He's actually grading out super well, which is shocking to me. And he doesn't seem to be a starter anymore. I'm not sure what's going on there. But with that, we got Gabe Reed, we got Jonah Ellis, we got Samode Pepa, we got Junior Tafuna. That's a solid group that should be able to do a good job against almost any team. How do you see that group doing against this, pretty touted offensive line for Oregon?
I think they're going to be tested again, kind of towards the beginning of the conversation. We're talking about how I think Utah and Oregon's best pieces have not really been tested very much. And so they're going against each other, and we're going to find out, who's made the most progress. Oregon has not really gone against a great defense since they went against Georgia, and they got absolutely demolished. And I think Washington kind of proved if you can get pressure on them, if you can cover really well, Oregon's not invincible. And as far as Utah's defense goes, you know, the best offense they faced in a while has been USC. So, you know, is it again?
Oh, okay. Now it's just me. I don't know. I think Michelle's signal died out there, and I'm still waiting on Dante. So I'll kind of touch a little bit on that, guys, while we wait for one of them to hop back on. I'm going to go ahead and pull up some PFF grades. You guys know that's one of my favorite things to do. So we went from having 2 guests to having 0. So that was a wild turn of events right there. But let's talk about the matchup we were just discussing. So Utah's defensive line against Oregon's pretty damn good offensive line. Let's take a look here. Excuse me. And like I said, guys, real quick, while they're off the screen, I'll plug it real quick. We're giving away a Cam Rising signed auto numbered out of 99, guys. This is a nice card, dude. This thing looks sick. If you guys want to win it, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment in the chat. Whoever is giving me the best questions all night and helping drive this conversation is going to be the one that wins the card. So I'm excited to give it to one of you guys. It's a really cool one. Oh, we got Michelle back. Hey, Michelle.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened.
That's okay.
As I was saying, so Utah's defense, you know, really hasn't faced anyone, I think, terribly good on the offensive side of the ball since USC. And of course, that was a mixed performance. Yes, they started getting more pressure and did a really good job of getting it to Caleb Williams and forcing him to make some mistakes that I think really ultimately helped. But they did allow a lot of yards, and they weren't necessarily, you know, at their absolute best. I think they played better games, but it's also been against lesser competition. So who's it going to be? Is Oregon's offense really all that, or is Utah's defense now really all that? We're going to find out on Saturday, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome, Michelle. And I know you got to get out of here in a minute. So before we get you out of here, why don't you tell us on each side of the ball for Utah, who is going to be the key player on each side of the ball for Utah? And then what is your prediction for the final score of this game?
Ooh, gosh, offensive side of the ball. Man, there's a couple of people. I think Cam Rising needs to have a really big game. So I would certainly say him. I think having Tavion come back and do what he does best is going to be huge for the offense. And, you know, if they can either get Kincaid going or Devon Bailey, I think it's going to be really, really huge as well. On the other side of the ball, I'm going to say it's that entire front seven. They've kind of been the part that's really crippled the defense. They've made or broke them several times this year. They need to have the game of their life this weekend. There's no doubt about it. Like, it can't be have these. It can't be. They have to go out and they have to take care of business. They have to. They don't. You know, this game's going to get ugly and it's going to get out of hand. As far as a final score, my big issue here is I have not decided whether or not I think Oregon gets away with winning or if Utah gets away with winning. I think it's going to be a really close, good game. I did say on Rival Insiders earlier this week, I was leaning towards Oregon. I think Utah finally gets maybe a big road win this year.
Yeah, I was gonna say you might not want to pick against Utah on this channel. Just they might eat you alive in the chat.
I don't know. I keep playing with. I feel like Utah really is peaking. I feel like Utah is in a place where they're confident. They're confident. They know who they are. They have their identity. I will go with Utah. I will go with
That's
Utah.
Awesome.
We'll say these teams both can put up like 40-ish points. We'll say 45-43. It's going to be a close game, I think.
That sounds fun. And that sounds like it's going to be a lot like USC. And guys, I just dropped her social media handle on the screen here. That's at Bodkin KSL Sports. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. I hope you enjoy the women's basketball game. And by the way, I think everyone in the chat agrees the glasses fantastic. So keep it up.
Thank you.
All right, have a great night. Bye, Michelle.
All right, you too. Bye.
All right, and that was Michelle Bodkin. Really cool of her to come on and hang out with us. Let's see if Dante's microphone, what the anticipation, waiting for him to try saying a word right now. That's why I'm building up the hype here, man. Let's give it a go.
Testing.
Go for a full sentence.
Hello. Go Utes. Hello, everyone. Your face
You're good.
Too.
You're back
no
in
way.
action, man.
Okay.
You're back
Your reaction didn't.
Man, that must have been. It must
left me
have
a
been
little sour.
That must have been
man.
frustrating. Yeah, I'm sorry you had to deal with
definitely
that.
was. Wow. Okay, that's a sigh of relief.
We're back in action. We are back in action, man. And we got a bunch more fun guests for you guys tonight. I'm gonna plug the card again if you guys are just jumping in. We've got a Cam Rising signed auto at a 99, super sick card. Like the video, comment in the chat. Whoever has the best questions all night, helping drive the conversation with the guests I have on. I'm gonna need all you guys' help to keep the conversation going because I just worked a full day, and by hour 2 or 3, it's going to be rough. And we'll only have Dante for so long tonight, so I'm going to need your guys' help. So make sure you help me out, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you guys want to win it. So awesome to have you here. So Dante, while we've got some time before our next guest, man, we got the prime guest, the guy that's always guest on this show every week, my co-host of the midweek show. Dante, tell me your thoughts on the game. You can just go for a little while, man. Tell us how you're feeling about the game. What do you think the key matchups are to watch?
Yeah, so I'll just start off with Utah's offense. And, I mean, Tavion back is just so huge. I'm sure everyone's saying that, and it's just simply true. There's no other really way to put it. Tavion back is huge for this Utah offense, huge for the rushing attack. Gives you some comfortability because you look at last year. In Utah's biggest games down the stretch, it was the Oregon regular season game, the Rose Bowl, Pac-12 championship. Those three are the ones that come to mind. Tavion Thomas scored in all 3 of those games. So having him back is super huge. Not to bag on Jaquindon or Jalen Glover or any of those guys, but they just haven't seen the bright lights like this before. So it's super relieving to have Tavion Thomas back for a game this big. But even without Thomas, I mean, there's still some change of pace guys back there. You still got Jalen Glover, you still got Jaquindon Jackson if you need to use them. And we've seen Nate Johnson really come on lately, threw a touchdown last week, ran for 2 against Arizona. So possibly see him in the mix there. Maybe a little Jaquindon Jackson, Nate Johnson, and Cam on the same field at one time. That would be something to see for sure. But I think Utah's going to be able to run the ball here. I do think Oregon's run defending numbers are a little bit skewed, as well as their passing numbers, because if you look at the way the games have just played out for them, they've been just smacking the crap out of teams, simply put. So a lot of the times these teams are just forced to throw the ball rather than run the ball, which is going to lead to your defense giving up more yards through the air than the ground. That's just how it goes. But Oregon's secondary still isn't very good. Their front seven is still very good, but the numbers are a little bit skewed. I don't think their secondary is as bad as it's made out to be, and I don't think their run defense is as good as it's made out to be. Because you look at the linebackers, both Noah Sewell and Jeffrey Bossa are below average in average depth of tackle, which is not a good thing to see. They're both also below average in stop percentage. If Justin Flo plays for them, that's a huge gap for Oregon, because this guy is, I mean, if you can just go watch his high school film, like, it is the most ridiculous film I've ever seen. He is like an absolute monster. He was
Flo? You're saying
yeah,
Flo?
yeah. He was the number 1 player in his class, and rightfully so, because that dude looks the part, and he is the part when he's on the field. Has about like a 16.4% stop rate, which is blowing Sewell and Bossa out of the water. So he's been great when on the field, but injuries have just plagued him throughout his career. So you never really know. I appreciate that, Manny. But having him on the field is big. If he gets hurt, though, which has happened like 3 or 4 times this year, like, he's just so inconsistent, which is not a great look. But when he's on the field, he's electric. And then in coverage, their linebackers aren't very good in coverage. Sewell and Bossa both on below average. Flo's been better than them, but like I said, the sample size isn't as big as those other two, so it's not as efficient looking at the metrics. And then their corners, Christian Gonzalez is a very good cornerback. He's been mocked in the top 10 by multiple experts. Got a really long frame, experienced, great instincts, the Colorado transfer that is. And then Triquez Bridges on the other side is also a 6'3" corner, big body, and is pretty physical as well. He's solid. The safeties aren't very good. The linebackers aren't very good in coverage. So I'm expecting a huge, huge game from Dalton Kincaid. I don't want to say huge, not USC level game, but I'm going to say 10 catches, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, for Dalton Kincaid against Oregon. And then the big matchup for me, though, like you guys were talking about earlier, the trenches is huge, obviously. But I do think that both Utah and Oregon will find success on the ground, and I think they'll end up being pretty even. I think the way that Utah breaks out of this game, the way that Utah can put themselves over the top and get this win is if Dalton Kincaid outperforms Troy Franklin. Those are both the bona fide number one targets on both teams. Troy Franklin, awesome player, great top end speed, real wide frame. Clark is very respectful of his game and knows it's going to be a big matchup. I do think Clark, his speed is going to really help us in this game. His overall just instincts and stuff like that, and his versatility. Because Troy Franklin can put him anywhere on this offense. Oregon's a team that likes to run a bunch of like bunch sets, run play action out of that, and that's where Troy Franklin makes his money. Those post moves over the middle is where he has been lethal this season. I think Clark Phillips III will be able to contain him, whereas I don't see the Oregon linebackers or their slot corner Bennett Williams being able to contain Dalton Kincaid. I think Dalton Kincaid is going to be the focal point of this game for Utah when it gets to the second half. I'm expecting the first half to be a little bit low scoring, both teams trying to run the ball, kind of feel each other out. But then the second half, when teams have to start opening it up, I expect Dalton to absolutely feast and outperform Troy Franklin, therefore leading Utah to a big road win. I'm going with the Utes 38-34.
Whew. I like that. 38-34. I see the game going pretty similar. Where do you think, I don't know if you said it, I think we didn't get to hear you really touch on it because your mic was messing up. What does Cam's game look like against Oregon?
I see Utah not really having to do a lot of design quarterback runs, so I'm not expecting his legs to be a huge factor, obviously. With that, still dealing with that knee injury, which isn't the greatest thing. But on the other side, Bo's banged up too, so we'll see. But I don't think Cam's legs are going to play a big factor, but I'm expecting a huge passing day. I said Dalton Kincaid goes for 160 yards through the air, receiving. I'll say Cam throws for 320. I think he has a very efficient game through the air. Like I said, this Oregon secondary is not that great. Their linebackers really struggle. Their safeties have struggled over the course of the season as well. Like I said, Dalton's going to feast. I think Cam is going to be very good, very decisive, hitting all the right reads. Those checkdowns from Mekhi will be there. I think Devon could also make a couple of plays as well. But I think Dalton's going to be the focal point, and that's just going to be the mantra for this game, just feed the beast. And I do think Rising will have a good game. And Capisi just said Rising had sort of an average game against Oregon last time. Part of the reason for that, though, he threw the ball 20 times. He didn't throw the ball very much.
Yeah,
in those
we were
games,
crushing them with the
which
run.
Which is going to lead. Yeah, exactly. That's going to lead to just less passing yards when you're only throwing the ball 20 times. He still had about 180 yards through the air, I believe, in the regular season game, which is averaging 9 yards per attempt, which is still very solid. So I think this game is going to be an all-out field day, just overall for both offenses. I think both teams will be able to move the ball very well, but like I said, Dalton is going to outperform Troy Franklin, therefore Utah wins the game. I think whoever plays better out of those two, those are both two teams, bona fide wide receiver ones. I expect both teams to be successful running the football and to be pretty level, honestly. I think Bucky Irving has a good game. I think Tavion Thomas has a good game. But I do think that Dalton Kincaid will outperform Troy Franklin, and that's the reason why Utah will win this football game. But for Oregon on the other side of the football, I think Bo being out is big, but Alex Forsyth, their center, is arguably the best center in the entire nation. He has been elite. Pass blocking, run blocking, just a monster. He's only given up one pressure the entire year. He's questionable too, and from what I've seen, it looks more like he's unlikely to play compared to Bo. I know the whole thing with Chris Hudson slipped out today, but I don't know. It's Bo Nix. He's been in the college football world for about 4 years now. He's not going to back down from this game. I believe he's going to play. And personally, I want him to play. I want to see a great game. I don't want Utah to beat Oregon with a backup quarterback and then it to be oh, Utah, they only beat them with a backup quarterback. I don't want that. I want Utah to beat a fully strength Oregon team with this quarterback who is being hyped up as a potential Heisman candidate, this team that has been on an absolute tear since that Georgia game. I want Utah to beat a full-strength Oregon team. I don't want any of this backup quarterback stuff. I want the entire team. I want both teams to be healthy and for Utah to just come out here and just smack them in the mouth, basically.
Dude, I love that. You just got me hyped up. That was exciting.
Love it.
That got me amped. And now we are going to go ahead and bring on our next guest, if he's ready here. We got Porter Larson of ESPN. Porter, thank you so much for coming on, man. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
We're doing super well, man, and I'm excited to be talking to you. Let me put your handle up. Make sure you guys give him a follow on Twitter, ESPN, all that, man, or Twitter, Instagram, whatever, all that, man. And so why don't you give us some initial thoughts on the Oregon-Utah game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's the one we've kind of all had circled from the start, a rematch of last year's Pac-12 title, and really the two premier teams going forward in this conference, right? UCLA, USC on the way out. I think the next decade of the Pac-12, you're looking at Utah, you're looking at Oregon, and then, who else is kind of up for grabs. And I think, analyzing that game and this game in that scope is an interesting one, just based on the future of the Pac-12 conference, especially with the expanded playoff coming in the near future. I think it's an interesting one, and it's kind of becoming a little bit of a rivalry just based on how much is on the line every time these two teams play.
Yeah.
And this one's no different, right? This is basically a semifinal game for the Pac-12 title, and to have it in Autzen, to have it, this much on the line, it makes for a really, really fun Saturday night, and I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be. And I agree, man. I feel like these Oregon games every time lately feels like such a big game. I mean, it feels like, especially with, USC and UCLA probably heading out of the Pac-12, that it feels like these are the two premier teams. I mean, people talk about Washington too, but it doesn't feel like they're quite on that level, at least right now and last year. A big question I had, man, we kind of mopped the floor with Oregon last year. It was not how people expected that game to go from the outside looking in, and we just really crushed them. Obviously, they've got a different coaching staff that seems to be doing a lot better. How do you think the effects of the last two times we played them carry over to a team that has a lot of players that were in those games?
Yeah, I mean, there's always that lingering effect, right? Utah had it the year before when they lost to Oregon in that way in the Pac-12 title game. They all remembered that going into that game in Rice-Eccles last year, and they fed off of it, right? So it always plays in a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think probably less in this matchup because this is there are some carryover players, but this is a new staff. This is a new roster. These are guys who feel like they've had a fresh start when it comes to the Oregon football program. And, obviously those individual players are going to remember what happened 2 weeks in a row or 2 games in a row with Utah and Oregon last time. But I think this is a team who, they are probably more pissed off about last Saturday, ending their 23-plus game home winning streak, losing to their rival in Washington. I think that is fresher on their mind and probably more top of mind for them coming in. But there's no doubt that they remember exactly what happened last time they played Utah, and they'll feed off of it. But for the Utes, I think they're familiar with that kind of thing, right? They're familiar with how that feels. So I don't think it'll be much of a benefit or much of a one team's not going to benefit from it more so than the other in any way. I think this is a really, really good matchup between two really good teams. And yeah, it's a rematch. But I don't know that the storyline is really too deep with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any thoughts from you on that one, Dante? Is there going to be any, do you think that could, I don't know what the best word would be, but lingering intimidation maybe or maybe lingering animosity, right? Because we did such a good job. And how do you think this affects that game, if it affects it at all?
Yeah, I think Porter hit the nail pretty much right on the head. I think they're much more broken up about last Saturday. I mean, losing a game in that fashion against your arch nemesis, that is going to take a toll on you. And they looked defeated after Saturday, man. They looked down in the dumps. They got out physicaled. They lost at home for the first time in 23 games. They just looked defeated. Not to mention your quarterback gets banged up. So to add some salt to the wound, not too good for the Ducks. And that was kind of where I flipped. Going into this game, say 2 weeks ago, I would have said that this was probably the least confident I've been about a Utah football game in some years. But now just seeing how these two teams have kind of progressed, and I think for me, the depth of this Utah defense has really showed what they're all about. like Sione Vaki, Samote Peppa, guys from all over the field, guys from in the front seven, in the secondary, stepping up and showing that they can be a vital force in this game. And you're going to need your guys to be fresh in this game because first of all, I think it's going to be really high scoring. So both teams will eventually be tired, but you're playing Oregon, who has arguably the best offensive line in the nation. You want your defense to be fresh. You want all your playmakers out there at 100%. And I think seeing guys like Samote Peppa, Sione Vaki, like I said, step up and play at a high level is super encouraging for this team going forward. And I think that's going to be one of the things that plays a big factor for this game, because if we look back in the early games, I mean, Florida pretty much imposed their will in the first half. Like, they had no issues running the ball. UCLA too had no issues running the ball, which helped open up their passing attack. DTR hit that 70-yard touchdown on the little drag route to Logan Loya, and that was kind of the nail in the coffin. Whereas now, I think Utah's much more conditioned, I guess is the word to use, and will be much more ready for a test like this. You know, Utah's already played a handful of competitive road games, a handful of elite competition on the road. You know, UCLA and Florida both have large offensive linemen. Oregon is no exception to that, and they're arguably better than both those teams on the offensive line. So Utah staying fresh, I think, is going to play a big factor here. And like I said, Porter hit pretty much at the nail right in the head. I think they're pretty much broken up about last week, and I don't know, their body language after that game just didn't look too hot when they were coming off the field.
Yeah, they definitely that was a heartbreaker for them. That slip was just wild. I don't know if you guys were watching that game live, but I was watching it, and I remember just like, oh no.
I was in my seat. I was in my seat at the U game and watching it on my phone. I was like,
oh no.
Trying to follow it during the game was difficult, but
yeah,
not one we expected, right? I thought Washington would go in and give them a battle, but I thought that Oregon, the Ducks, would have 24 straight at home when the Utes came calling. One loss in a row instead.
Yeah, I as much as, like, you know, it is what it is, I'm excited to play them. How cool would this weekend have been if it had USC and UCLA, with UCLA not losing to Arizona, and then Oregon and Utah? That would have been best weekend in college football. I mean,
you would have had two different matchups in the Pac-12 that are borderline top 10 matchups, right? And that would have been the biggest weekend in the conference in recent memory. But still a lot to be decided, still a lot on the line. Just not quite the rankings that would have been there. And yeah, you may have had college game day interest. I don't know exactly what, but yeah, that's one where you wish they would have had it. You're right. It would have made things a little more interesting, but still plenty to play for on Saturday.
Yeah, and make sure you guys give Porter here a follow. I got it on the screen there at Larson_ESPN. Awesome of him to come on. Thanks again, man. Can you tell us a little when it comes to both sides of the ball for Utah? So on offense, what do you think Utah is going to need to do to win this game? And who do you think the key player is for Utah on offense?
Man, offensively, you want to say the quarterback, right? Cam Rising, obviously important for this offense. But I think on Saturday, it's Tavion Thomas. The guy that we saw this last week against Stanford is the player you need. It's the player you expected coming into 2022, and it's the player you had in 2021. I think if you're going to repeat as Pac-12 champions, I think if you're going to get back to Pasadena or a New Year's celebration, Tavion has to be that guy, right? In order to get past Oregon, in order to get past USC or whoever you end up facing in the Pac-12 title, you need that Tavion Thomas in the game. I've kind of, come to expect certain things from Cam Rising. I've come to expect certain things from Dalton Kincaid. The offensive line's been really good, and their question is more about availability than it is about ability. For Tavion, if you get another 150-yard, 2-touchdown day, I think it makes it really difficult on Oregon to put up 40 points like I think Utah will. And that's what I think it comes down to. This game is going to be decided by which team can establish the run and turn the other team into more of a one-dimensional offense. And, yeah, I think Tavion is a huge, huge part of that. Lucky thing for Utah is even if he's not, Mekhi Bernard is starting to get back to full health, and you have a really deep running back room. So I do think it's Tavion, but if it's not, I think the Utes are still well equipped to handle things without him.
And you think we see the good Tavion this weekend? You think he comes out and does it again?
I do. Yeah. No, there's no inclination, no reason to think otherwise. Tavion, he might have looked better than he ever has in that game against Stanford. Now, Stanford's defensive line is terrible. I think going into that game, Stanford was 130th FBS in defending the run, which there's 132 teams. So they were not good defending the run. So you expected a good game out of Tavion. You expected him to be productive. But to go out and get a career high, and you saw the explosion on that last one, that 36-yarder. He looks as fresh as he ever has, and fresh is where he is, really. He hasn't had a lot of reps. He hasn't had a lot of carries in this last month. So not only is he back in action, not only is he mentally invested with the team again, he seems to be really fresh physically. So I'm excited to see what he can do for the stretch run. And yeah, at this point, I have no reason to believe that he won't be the Tavion we saw in 2021.
And that's a great point, Porter, because, yeah, if Tavion could get hot now where he's had so much time on the bench, basically just hanging out, if he could get the stride going now, he's so fresh, so healthy, this could be such a big time for him to just take off, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, you kind of have a little bit of a soft approach, if you will, right? Whatever it was, right? It was the loss of his grandmother, who wasn't necessarily just his grandmother. She raised Tavion, right? That was his mother figure. And mentally, he didn't handle that well, right? He's gotten some help in that way and seems to be on the right track there. And, you saw him get the game ball after the game. I think Tavion is back in, they're still going to make him accountable. They're still going to make sure that he does the things off the field that he needs to do. But yeah, man, I don't think that there's any reason to believe that he's not the guy that we've seen. And I think that's the X factor for Utah going into this.
I think it's what Capisi said. He just hates Stanford. He's not a fan of
That's
Stanford.
The other thing. He had, I think, 170 against Stanford the last time. Stanford has allowed 1,551 yards in the last 3 weeks. It's hard to really take a lot of stock in what you see against the Stanford team right now. I don't know who they are week in and week out. But at the very least, it gives Tavion the confidence. It let him, get that engine turning. And yeah, hopefully it's the little kicker that he needs to finish off the season strong and to keep it going, right? We hopefully don't see any more of those step backs that we've seen so far this year.
Yeah, you got to hope so. And it felt awesome, man. Tavion's has his ups and downs and whatever's going on behind the scenes. It was just awesome to see him out there, get it done, and, help his draft stock out a little bit, help the team out a little bit, and just awesome to see, because it hasn't been fun to watch Tavion not do well. That wasn't something I wanted to happen. The next question I have for you, Porter, the defense. So on Utah's defense, what is the key to getting the job done? And who do you think is going to be the biggest impact player on defense, whether we win or lose this game?
Yeah, with this one, I've liked the way this defense is kind of coming to its own, right? You started the season with a bunch of young guys who talented, the ability was never the question. They just haven't done it before, right? You've never seen Lander Barton. You've never seen a lot of these guys in game action. And I think that was evident early on in the year. You're starting to see those mistakes and those hangups fewer and farther between, right? And that's where this Utah defense is really coming to its own. And I think they're top 22nd in the country against opposing offenses as far as points per game goes. So they've settled right into what the Utah defenses we're used to seeing usually produce. As far as a single player goes, man, that's hard to narrow down. I really do think that the X factor and the big key for this Utah defense is a four-man rush. Right? We saw the middle part of that season, they could not get pressure with four guys. And what that did was it kind of forced Morgan Scalley into, blitzing a little more than he wanted to, or blitzing guys that he didn't necessarily want to. Yeah, you like to see Clark Phillips in there. You like to see DB blitzes every once in a while. but it seemed like it was happening too much in the middle of the year because he was being forced to do it. There was no pressure with the 4-man rush. Last month or so, that started to rectify itself, right? You've seen Jonah Ellis. You've seen Connor O'Toole kind of emerge. You saw Van Fillinger really emerge, unfortunately.
Yeah. Right before he gets injured.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's lost for the year. But Connor O'Toole, Jonah Ellis, Gabe Reed, the transfer from Stanford, those guys have kind of come into their own a little bit up along the front in Aliki Vimahi and Simote Pepa have been phenomenal over the course of the last 2 weeks. So as long as that continues to be the case, I think they'll be fine along the front. And I look at that as the X factor. If you can get pressure on Bo Nix, if you can get a push along that offensive front and, limit the Oregon run game, I think you give your team a really good chance of getting out of there victorious. But it is a big question mark because that Oregon offensive line, one of the more experienced units in college football and probably the best unit in Pac-12.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned that we've been doing really well lately, getting back there with the pass rush with our D-line. But like you said, this Oregon offensive line is sturdy. This is a really good Oregon offensive line. I was looking at their PFF grades. Their average pass block grade on that offensive line is an 80, which is just ridiculous. That's crazy. Do you feel confident that we could get back there and make some pressure with this D-line?
I do. I do think that the loss of Fillinger is going to be felt, right? I'm excited to see what Morgan dials up to fill that void, right? If Jonah Ellis, if Gabe Reed, if these guys can win their one-on-ones, it opens up the defensive playbook so much, man. I don't know that a lot of folks realize what you have to adjust when you don't get pressure with 4, right? Not only does that give the quarterback more time, but it also forces your defensive coordinator to change how he goes about calling plays. And for Utah, they rely so much on creating chaos. They rely so much on getting turnovers and getting into the backfield and using that sheer physicality. If you can't get pressure with 4, it kind of nullifies everything that Utah does well, right? So yeah. I do think that is the key, and I think that they can. I really do. It's going to come down to one-on-ones, and it's really as simple as that. If those guys can win their one-on-ones, and I'm looking at Gabe Reed and Jonah Ellis and Connor O'Toole, get pressure on Bo Nix, force them to run the ball, and if you win the turnover battle, which Utah's done majority of this year. If you win the turnover battle, I think you win this football game. And that goes for both sides, just because of how tight I think it's going to be otherwise, right? The line of the scrimmage is going to be a real battle between these two teams on both sides. So win the turnover battle, I think you win the football game. And for Utah, that means, you have to get some pressure, hopefully with 4. But I do think that the loss of Van Fillinger necessitates a little bit more, probably sending 5, maybe, disguising blitzes every once in a while, making it look like you're bringing a bunch of pressure and then just sending 4. You're going to see a lot of that on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it a little. I talked a little bit about him, but one guy I do want to shout out that has really stepped up this season is Simote Pepa. Just taking a look at his grades here, guys. He is, at first it was like he had a really good run grade, but the pass rush grade wasn't great. And then they both became really damn good. He has really turned into a monster and a guy that I am really excited to see hit the field. When you think about it, man, we could pull up the edge rushers too. We're going to have Simote Pepa, Junior Tafuna in the interior, and then we're going to have Gabe Reed, and we're going to have Jonah Ellis. Did I say his name? Jonah Ellis on the edge. I mean, this is a really good offensive line for sure, but I feel pretty damn good about us getting back there and causing some havoc before it's all said and done. And Porter, anything else you want to go over tonight, man?
No, I mean, open to you guys. Whatever you want to get out of the way on the way out.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll drop you off then. I'm gonna let Dante go for a while, but I appreciate your time a lot, man. Make sure you guys give Porter a follow at Larson_ESPN. And thank you so much for coming on tonight, man. Go Utes.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy, guys, and yeah, we'll check in after hopefully a win against Oregon and maybe a Pac-12 title game.
Anytime, man. Have a good one, Porter. All right, back to Dante. Awesome, man. I feel like I'm guessing you got some thoughts, some things you want to say, man. You want to go for a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Why not? So everything Porter said is very, very good insight, by the way. Very, very knowledgeable. But overall, though, I think Utah, these teams are so similar, so similar in terms of what they do. Both have quarterbacks who have live arms, can throw on the run, can run the ball as well. So that's going to be interesting to see. But I really don't think that battle is going to be that big. We both know both these guys can get the ball to their receivers, So I think it's which secondary plays better is going to be more of a factor rather than how the quarterbacks play. We know both these guys are elite. We know that both these guys are top 10 quarterbacks in the nation. So it's going to be which pass catchers play better. It's going to be which secondary plays better. Because like I've said 1,000 times already, I do think both teams will be good on the ground. I expect both teams to average more than 4.5 yards per carry on the ground as a team. I expect both to be around the same number. Not like that's going to be a huge factor, but like Porter said, the turnover battle, you don't want to have a costly fumble or anything like that. That is a huge hinge point within this game. But let's talk about Oregon's pass rushers a little bit because they do have some very good players on their defensive line, starting off with Brandon Dorless. This is a player that's been doing it for a while. He's been a consistent force on Oregon's defensive line for quite some time now, a few years. Really versatile player, can play from both the edge and D tackle. Really good athleticism for somebody that size. His game won't translate super well to the NFL, in my opinion, but against college level guards and centers, he is more than capable of getting around those types of players. Good against the run as well. 35 pressures on the year, 15.7% win rate. Those are both extremely good stats. And then DJ Johnson on the other side, when Dorless is playing defensive end, like I said, he plays defensive tackle as well. But the real defensive end, the true defensive end on this Oregon Ducks team is DJ Johnson. He's also a pretty good player. Pretty consistent, 17.5% win rate, 5 sacks on the year. No complaints there. Very serviceable player. Pretty big body too. The dude is strong. Just looking at his frame, you can tell that this guy can throw some offensive linemen to the ground. But I do think Utah will be able to contain that. The center position is a little bit of a question mark right now with couple of players being out last week, having to bring in a third string. But I do think that we'll be healthy there. Hopefully we'll be healthy there at least. I'm not really sure. There hasn't been too much news or speculation about that, surprisingly. But I think tackles are more than serviceable. We've seen Taulomea struggle, especially in the early parts of the year. But as of late, he's been very good. Only gave up 1 pressure last week. He's only given up 4 pressures since the USC game after allowing 15 in his first 6 games, which is not very good production. And then on the other side, you got Braden Daniels, who has been just an absolute force all year long. No real complaints there. He's got everything, the experience, the athleticism, just the mastery of this offense. There is no real weakness in Braden Daniels' game. He's only allowed 8 pressures this year, which is pretty ridiculous. 0 sacks. So I think Utah's able to pass block well, run block well. We got Thomas back. No real issues with the run game. I think we finally hit our stride. And these last 2 performances against teams that, sure, not that good, but it's just great to see because early in the year, it was just so inconsistent. And yes, Daniels did get invited to the Senior Bowl, which is awesome. Him and Kincaid both. So congratulations to both of them. But we've seen Utah's offensive line, and especially in terms of run blocking, really evolve this year. Keaton Bills has stepped up in a big way. Brandon Daniels always being consistent. We know what type of player Taulomea is in the run game. Early in the year, it was everyone just worried about his pass pro, whereas now his pass pro is kind of figured out, and he's always been a beast in the run game, which is what has kind of taken him to the next level as his pass blocking has improved over the course of the year. So I think Utah's offensive line is going to be fine. Don't really see any issues on offense here. I really see Utah clicking on all cylinders, barring fluke plays, turnovers, stuff like that. But overall, I think Utah's going to be able to sustain drives really well. And then you look back at Oregon's game against UCLA. The real turning point in that game was the onside kick that Oregon called in the second quarter. I think it was the second quarter, but it was a huge onside kick call, caught UCLA off guard. Oregon recovers it, scores another touchdown, and UCLA scored on 75% of their drives in the game. So the issue with them, it wasn't moving the ball. They were able to move the ball very easily. It was finishing drives and that onside kick. I think Utah's offense is much better through the air than UCLA's. Dorian Thompson-Robinson only averages around 6.5 air yards per attempt, which means there's just a lot of short, quick passes predicated on getting guys into space, stuff like that. Whereas Utah, Oregon can tackle well. Like that's where we've seen UCLA struggle. When teams can tackle well against them and not let other teams get into and be able to get their guys into open space, that's when their offense is clicking. And it worked against Utah, whereas Utah doesn't rely on that. The passing attack is so versatile, so many different receivers, running backs, receivers, tight ends, stuff like that. So I don't see Oregon's secondary really having a good day here. Who's our best spy? It's a great question. That is a really good question.
Why don't you answer that question?
That's really interesting because I think in terms of like a pure athleticism standpoint and upside, like if we get Mohamed Diabate playing at a high level, he is the best spy on this team. But with him, you just never know. A lot of times he overruns plays against the run and things like that. So you can't really speculate how he's going to play. You never really know. But if he's on his A game, he is an extremely scary person to go up against for opposing defenses. But I'm going to say in terms of overall consistency, I'll go Cole Bishop, man. He's got great speed, great first step, really athletic, has rushed the passer a good amount this year. We've seen him spy a little bit too when they bring him down into the box. I'll say Cole Bishop, but if Mohamed Diabate can play to the best of his ability, it's gonna be a wild performance from him because he is an athletic freak. You won't stand a chance we don't lose at home. I mean,
I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but you lost at home last week, dude.
And then we won't mention 2015 when Utah stormed into Utes and beat you guys 62-20. But yeah, I mean, sure, you guys don't lose at home.
And I don't think the home advantage is going to make up for like the 24-point average we beat you guys by last year, or 30, whatever it was. Ridiculous.
That's fair. That's fair.
I had another question that I liked. It was a while back from Larry. I like this question. Utah Football Digest: is Vaki needing more time in the game? I think he asked it again in a different way, a little ways down, but like is Vaki getting heavier in the rotation? I mean, Dante, how do you feel about Vaki right now? How do you feel about him getting more playing time?
More playing time, I'm not sure about. I think he's getting the perfect amount of playing time right now, like perfect amount of playing time. He's a great athlete, a great player, but he's still a freshman, still learning the ropes of this defense. So I wouldn't want to throw him into the fire and make him a full-time starter this early on in his career. But when he's on the field, he's been showing some great flashes, and I think the way they're using him right now is fantastic, and I wouldn't change it up.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, right. Let him do what he does best. Put him in the situations that work best for him, and let him do his thing. Don't force him to be out there.
This also just isn't the game to give him an absurd amount of playing time. You know, maybe last week if you gave him 50 snaps on defense, then you could transition him into a bigger role in a bigger game. But I don't think it's a smart move to have him playing 20 to 30 snaps over the past 3 weeks and then all of a sudden just throw him into the fire against Oregon 50 snaps. Like, I don't think that's a real recipe to success, but what he's shown on the field this early on in his career is just sensational. And I'm really looking forward to see him play next year when he's a full-time starter. I'm really looking forward to see how he plays when he is on the field in these next few games, because when he's on the field, he's just an impact, just a difference maker. The way he's able to close speed and close the space within a short amount of time is just fantastic. And he's a great player that's emerged on this Utah defense.
He has been impressive, dude. It's been like I was aware of him coming into this year. I was excited about him, but he has really kind of set the standard a little higher than I thought he would. If you look at this, man, those grades are pretty wild, especially for a freshman. It's not like you said, he's getting a good amount of snaps, 147 snaps in the season, and it really feels like the majority of those snaps are in the last like 4 games or so. I think he's really stepped up, done a great job. And, this is anecdotal, but I don't know if you've noticed this, Dante, but I feel like when he's out there, man, if a quarterback starts scrambling, a running back gets into the open space, anything like that, all of a sudden he's just flying to that side of the field and making the play, dude. It's like you see him in the area and you're like, okay, I like to see that. He's about to make the play. So
yeah, man, his recognition on just overall plays is beautiful. And like I said, he closes speed better than anyone really in the conference. Like, he flies to that ball. And for a freshman, that's insane. I don't think we've seen a true freshman in this Utah defense that wasn't like a Lander Barton or a super highly touted recruit just kind of come in his first year and just make the type of impact that Sione Vaki has. Obviously, there's been guys throughout the course of the Pac-12 era that have come on as freshmen. Clark Phillips, Jalen Johnson both had their moments in their freshman year, but Sione Vaki has been playing at a ridiculously consistent level. And I think the way that Utah is using him right now, kind of in that slot corner safety hybrid, is just perfect. They're using his skill set perfectly. There's no complaints with him. And I think that it's too early to give him a huge role, but I think the way they're using it right now is really great to see. And then you look at next year. Next year, the safety room is going to be ridiculous. Sione Vaki, Cole Bishop, Nate Ritchie coming back, Clayton Isbell going to be stepping up. I don't think RJ has any eligibility left, unfortunately. But I mean, if he was there, that would just add so much more to this room, because next year, even without him, that safety room is extremely deep and talented.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I'm being selfish when we're talking about the spy, would I be excited if all of a sudden I saw Vaki spying Bo Nix every play and just make a few plays? That'd be exciting to see. But probably not
That'd
the
be cool.
best idea, because the bad side of that could hurt his confidence, all
Yeah.
that stuff. Yeah, probably not.
Little too early, probably. But I mean, like I said, it's kind of similar to Diabate. Like, if they're on their A game, the upside is there and through the roof, because these two are extremely fast players. Like, we've seen Diabate really pick it up as a pass rusher over the last few weeks, and that's where he was at his best last year at Florida. And now Larry, we actually lost them the last time we played them in Austin in 2017. So a little bit of a touchy subject there, but the time before that we kicked them. So that was great to see. But like I've been saying, Diabate has really been stepping up as a pass rusher. Awesome to see that, because that's where he was at his best at Florida. He was one of the best pass rushing linebackers in the nation last year at Florida, whereas the run defense and other stuff wasn't really there. And I've really liked the way that Scally has implemented into this defensive game plan, as well as all these other guys have just been playing at a super high level. So I think for Utah, in terms of spying, it's got to be Diabate or Bishop. I wouldn't throw Vaki into the fire too early, but if the occasion rises and he has a couple of good reps, might as well just keep riding the hot hand.
There was one other guy I wanted to bring up for my go as the spy, and he's kind of had an up and down season, had an up and down year last year, but for me, it's Karine Reed, man. I would not hate the idea of he's an athletic guy. He moves laterally super well. And I would not hate the idea of him being the guy. I wouldn't be shocked to see us do a rotation of spies, right? If we are spying him a good amount, just keep them guessing on who's the guy that's actually spying Bo Nix. We got a good 3 to 5 guys that could legitimately do a good job spying on Bo Nix. So I definitely wouldn't hate that. So we got another guest coming on soon here. Not quite yet. Anything else you want to talk about while we're waiting for our next guest, Dante?
Let me think. There's got to be something. This game is huge. And then, Lander Barton being the spy. Lander is an interesting one, and I think I personally wouldn't do that. Once again, it's a freshman. Like, we're talking about Bo Nix here. This isn't a freshman quarterback. This is a guy that's been a starter in college football at an SEC program for 3 years before this one. Like, I don't think putting a freshman as our spy would be a great game plan. And then Reed, I kind of, while that wouldn't be the worst thing, I think you just look at Diabate and say Diabate is much faster. I think he's got to be the spy, because I could totally see Bo Nix out athletic, like kind of just beating Karene to the edge, because Karene has tremendous instincts. He's much more of a football IQ guy than like a pure talent guy, whereas Diabate is more so the opposite, because we have seen him be kind of a boomer bust player where he's overrunning one snap, and then the next time he gets a sack or a huge tackle for loss and he looks like the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I wouldn't really throw Lander in there. I think Cole is the guy personally for this job. I think Cole and Diabate kind of mix, spice it up a little bit, keep Oregon a little bit off schedule. I think that's got to be the recipe for Utah when it comes to spying Bo Nix, because I mean, he is truly a weapon. And you look at a lot of these teams playing him, and I mean, he beats you in so many ways. When he's out of the pocket, teams are hesitant to come up and pass rush him, because they know that he's just going to make a miss in open field and break one off for another 30 yards. Like, he is a truly talented player, and it's going to be really tough to stop him. But like I said, I think the big matchup here is Clark Phillips versus Troy Franklin. I think Clark Phillips has a much better chance at stopping Troy Franklin than Oregon's linebackers or safeties do at stopping Dalton Kincaid. So in my opinion, that's the breaking point of this game. That's where Utah breaks it open. It's going to be really close. So no matter who wins this game, it's going to be within 7 points. I don't care if Ty Thompson's behind center for Oregon. I don't care if Bo Nix is. Their coaching staff is good enough. Dan Lanning had learned from the best of the best at Georgia. Will Muschamp and Kirby Smart. Those are two of the best defensive minds of football. Say what you want about Will Muschamp as a head coach, as a defensive coordinator, as a defensive staff piece. He is one of the best defensive minds in college football. Dan Lanning knows his stuff. This staff knows its stuff. Their offensive coordinator, Kenny Dillingham, has been arguably the best offensive coordinator in the nation. Like, he has been just drawing up masterful game plan after game plan. And last week, I mean, we're talking about Bo Nix. Like, even with the loss last week, he is on a 5-game streak of averaging over 10 yards per attempt and having an adjusted completion percentage above 80%. Like, that consistency is unprecedented in this conference. We haven't seen that really since like probably Sam Darnold back in 17. Like, he has been on an absolute tear. So it's going to be a really good game, and I think both offenses are going to come to the occasion and bring their A game. But at the end of the day, I do see Dalton Kincaid being the factor that brings Utah over the top.
Yeah, I think this will be a big game from Dalton Kincaid. I think we'll have a big passing game in general. Oregon's not exactly the greatest passing defense in the world. And on that note, let's bring in Pac-12 expert and Oregon, big-time fan of Oregon and guy that covers Oregon in Spencer McLaughlin. You guys can follow him at Smalls_55. Spencer, Hawaii's getting you pretty crispy over there, getting you a nice little tan. How's it going?
Oh man, it's going pretty great. It's easy to get tan here, but frankly, just as easy it is for me back in Utah, because in both places I spend a lot of time on the golf course. So you don't want to see my sock tan, fellas. It's rough. It's rough.
I'm sure. I actually just started golfing like a couple months ago.
Did you really? Let's go.
Pretty terrible.
Love it, man. You're not the only one who started in the last couple of years, and I freaking love it. It is the greatest game.
It's catching on a little, huh? I feel like it's
growing.
Not just like business people now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like...
COVID, for all the disaster that it caused, and we're still feeling a lot of those effects. Larry is correct, by the way. I do live in the state of Utah at the moment, but COVID was great for golf because people needed a way. They needed something to do, and they needed to go outside. And a bunch of people suddenly realized. I don't know why it took a once in a century global pandemic for people to realize, hey, this golf thing is really fun. And I'm just sitting there like, I've been trying to tell you all, this game freaking rocks. You're never gonna master it, and you can play it until you can't walk anymore. It's the best.
Yeah, I'm with you. And surprisingly sore the next day. That's one thing no one tells you about. You don't expect that.
If you go out and it's 85 degrees and you walk 18 holes, if you don't do that a lot, you will feel it the next day. You don't think you will, but you will feel it. If you're carrying your clubs on your back, that's another 35 to 40 pounds, and you're walking, I don't know, several miles.
Yeah. All right, and speaking of a game that rocks, man, I really appreciate you coming on. Second time you've been on the channel. I loved having you on last time. You just kind of ran and went for it, man. Tell us what you think about the game. Tell us what we should be looking for.
Whether or not Bo Nix plays. It is as simple as that for how I feel in terms of a confidence about Oregon. And look, if Ty Thompson finally gets a chance to run the offense, then maybe he'll be able to step up and show something he hasn't shown yet. Because the question mark there is that what we've seen from Ty Thompson when he's come into the game as the backup, when the game is in hand, and he's with some second stringers but running a few plays, it has looked discombobulated, disjointed, and not fluid. He doesn't feel like he's in command of the offense, or he doesn't feel like he's pushing Bo Nix as a starter. He doesn't feel like he is commanding the offense and understanding everything the way that he needs to. Are the physical gifts there? Yeah. I mean, he's a big guy. He can move. It's not a feature of his game. He's got a big, lively arm, but it just hasn't been there. And the two staffs who have seen Ty Thompson have both determined the same thing. He's not ready to start. And there have been a lot of Duck fans who at one point in time have clamored on my channel or many other channels as well about, coming into the year, why are we bringing in another transfer? We got to have a homegrown quarterback. We got to have this. And then real quick, we saw what Bo Nix could do, and everybody was kind of like, okay, I'll forgive it. Never mind. Bo's really good. And I think the fact that a second staff, one that recruited him, one that did not, evaluated Ty and said, this guy is not at this point in time good enough to be a starting quarterback who can help us win at a championship level within the conference or beyond, I think is telling, at least to where he's at right now. It doesn't mean he can never be a good player. Maybe one day he could be, but right now the experience isn't there. The trust from the coaching staff hasn't been shown, when he's gotten in the game, but also outside of that. And I think that's telling. But I think the most fascinating matchup in this game is how Utah decides to attack Oregon, because if they come out and try to go 50-50 balance, run and pass, I think you're playing into Oregon's hands defensively. The model to beat Oregon, to move the ball and have a lot of yards, is not to try and run the football excessively. Doesn't mean you can't. It doesn't need to be a Mike Leach, conceived game plan where you throw it 65 times. But Cam Rising better be over 30 passing attempts if you're Utah in this game. Like, that just has to, it's got to be that way, because Oregon has shown they've got, they've recruited well the last several years. They have some bodies up front, but those guys know how to stop the run, and they do not know how to stop the pass. And before I came on, I heard you say that their pass defense has been less than spectacular, less than stellar. That was one of the worst defensive performances I have ever seen from an Oregon football team at Autzen Stadium last week. And it wasn't an issue on the ground. They held Washington on 3rd and 1 or 2 on 3 to 5 instances. Like, they can stiffen up against the run. But the guys, for whatever reason, it's not that they're not big enough. It's not that they're not experienced enough. It's just the sort of players that they are. They don't get after the passer. And as a result, a secondary that has one really good player in Christian Gonzalez. I hope, as an Oregon fan's perspective, he shadows Devon Vele. I think that's what he needs to do for Oregon to have the most success. And then you try and match up where you can with Dalton Kincaid. But they ran a lot of soft zone last week, and you can't do that. You can't run zone defense almost exclusively if you can't get pressure. I'm a Seahawks fan too, and I remember the Legion of Boom days very fondly, might I add. That defense was not very complicated, right? They ran cover 3 with a single high safety and Richard Sherman on one side. But the reason they ran zone like 60 to 70% of the time, more than anybody else, is because their pass rushers were ass kickers. They had Cliff Averill. They had Michael Bennett. They had Chris Clement. Like, keep going down the list. They could get pressure with 4. Oregon can't get pressure with 4. And as a result, your quarterback can have a lot of time. And I think Cam Rising is a really good player. Is he the sort of guy who can throw it 40 times in a game like a Michael Penix or, a Mike Leach quarterback? I don't know. We'll see, because it hasn't been Utah's MO, but I'm very curious as to what the offensive scheme and just game plan is going to be from Kyle Whittingham and Andy Ludwig as to how they want to attack this Oregon defense, because everyone's seen the same thing on film, and you just have the numbers up on the screen. The pass defense is atrocious. I mean, it's so bad. And I could give you 15 to 20 minutes on why exactly that is, but that's the reality of it. And I think a team in Utah that typically wants to be like 60-40 run to pass has got to be able to flip that and look at the Washington game and say, this is how you beat that Oregon defense. And this is how you do it inside Autzen Stadium, where they've been much better than how they've performed on the road this year.
Yeah, that's funny. Every guest we've had on tonight has talked about how Tavion's going to have a big game. And I'm on the same page as you, Spencer. I feel like the numbers are telling me something else. And to be fair, I could see Tavion having a big game, but that's if Cam Rising has a big game as well. It's like, if our passing game makes you guys loosen up, then Tavion will have a big game. I don't think we're going to go in there pounding. I think that'd be awesome. What a story that would be for Tavion to go out there this week and just start pounding the rock. That'd be awesome. But I don't know if that's exactly what's going to happen. So you did a little bit of trashing on your Ducks defense, but let's talk about the offense. Let's imagine Bo. I feel the way that they are acting, like every press conference and little, media get together I've seen of Dan Lanning has him acting like Bo is not playing. And it feels like, because I'm seeing that, it feels obvious that Bo is going to play. Why don't you tell us about the offense? Let's assume that Bo Nix is playing. What should Utah fans expect? And what does Utah need to do if they want to stop this Oregon offense?
You've got to be able to slow down the run. You can't stop the Oregon rushing attack. You just can't. And the Utah front 4, I know they've had their struggles at some points in time this year. They're not quite where they were a season ago. Certainly missing a player of Devin Lloyd's caliber when it comes to stopping the run. But this Oregon offense, you can't fully stop them on the ground. But I think the formula is what Cal showed, and that's slow them down on the ground and make the quarterback be a little bit more involved, because the game plans week in and week out since the Georgia game have been damn near flawless, and they have been executed at a high level. I mean, guys, 34 points last week snapped a streak. Like, that was a down point total from what their expectations have been. That's where this offense is at. And it does start on the ground, but the passing component, I think, comes into play a little bit quicker than what Utah will do. The Ducks will have a drive, and they did in the fourth quarter. Unfortunately, they couldn't cap it off with points against the Huskies and ice the game, but they had a drive where they didn't throw a pass beyond the line of scrimmage, and they only slung it out to Chris Hudson once or twice, I think. And they marched down the field, and they were just pounding Washington. 5, 6, 10 yards, 7, 8, 4, where it was at the point where 4 yards was a bad rush. And that's how it was in the Cal game too. I think the yards per carry was just over 4, like 4.2. That's the lower end of Oregon's output on the ground this year. That's where you have to hold them, because if they get into a place where they're running the ball that effectively, it sets up their deep shots on play action. And they've done a really good job this year. And I tell you, for Oregon fans, it's been a breath of fresh air, because last year there was not a consistent stream of downfield passing. It just wasn't there. It wasn't part of the philosophy. It wasn't part of the quarterback's repertoire, but it very much is present here. And Bo Nix has taken downfield shots to a variety of guys: Troy Franklin, Chris Hudson, Dante Thornton last week, Chase Cota. They'll hit some, not all the way down the field, of course, but some kind of middling downfield shots to tight ends from time to time. They like to get the running backs out of the backfield involved. They did that a lot against Cal. So they have a lot of different ways that they can attack you. And if you let them run the ball at, 6 to 7 yards per carry, which they've had a lot this season, I think it was around 7 against Washington. Like, it's been unlike anything I've ever seen from Oregon. That makes it really difficult on your defense. So I think if you're Utah, you can't go in with the expectation of, we're going to hold Oregon to 2.5 yards a carry, and they're going to have 85 yards on, 20 or 30 something attempts or whatever that would figure to be. It's just not realistic. But what is realistic, if you're Utah, and what the kind of ceiling is defensively, it's hold Oregon under 150 rushing yards and hold them in the 130 to 140 range. By the way, that guy made a very good point. Washington did not tackle very well. It's also been a trend this season that Oregon running backs, particularly Bucky Irving, have been tough to get on the ground, but Cal tackled very well. That's how they kind of slowed it down and such. But if you can keep Oregon under 150 on the ground, that's your best chance to hold them, under where they've gotten at times this year. But you see that average 7 yards a carry, ridiculous stat. And he does a lot of it himself. The offensive line will do a great job opening up a hole for him, and they do it often. And the scheme in the running game has been really smart, but he's shifty, man. He is just shifty. He's crafty, and he just breaks tackles. That's the easiest. He's got more than one way to get around you, and he just breaks tackles. And he and Whittington have both been good. They have distinct styles. Irving's a little bit more crafty, a little bit more shake and bake in the hole and make a cut. And Whittington is a little bit more of a one cut downhill runner, but he has some nice agility as well. So the Ducks have got a lot of weapons, and you're not going to keep them under 100 yards or anything like that. But if you could at least keep them under 200 or even under 150, that'd be a good place for Utah to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, this is one of the guys, I'm familiar with Bucky Irving, but as I was breaking down the game, I was surprised just how damn good the numbers are and just how good the PFF grade is. I mean, for Utah fans, I know you said, so for him, the offensive line opens up the holes, and then he kind of, makes it go nuts and makes the big plays out of it. When we look at this guy, I mean, is there a reason he's not getting it? It looks like at the beginning of the year, he wasn't getting a ton of carries, but then over time, they started giving him more. Do you feel like this could be a big game for a guy like Bucky Irving?
It could be. The interesting thing about just because he's that sort of player and has that potential, but the Oregon running back room, what they've done a great job of this year is rotating guys in and out. Like, you'd say Bucky Irving's the number one, but Whittington oftentimes equals or surpasses him in carries, and it's not that big of a surprise. In the last couple of weeks, we haven't seen as much Sean Dollars, who is a different style of running back compared to Whittington or Irving, who does a lot of really good things. I've always been a big Sean Dollars fan. We didn't show the two back set, but typically we've done that with Dollars and Irving, or Dollars and Whittington rather, and one lead blocks for the other. And Dollars is also a really good pass catcher, probably the best pass catcher of the bunch, though they're all capable. Irving gets brick hands from time to time, but overall, they can catch passes out of the backfield and do a lot of really good things in that sense. And the balance that they've had in that room has been really prominent. And I think a big reason why they've had so much success. You think of a guy, like I've seen some people talk about, he's the best running back that Utah has seen since Zach Charbonnet. That's probably true, but it's a different type. Like, you're not going to be force-fed Zach Charbonnet the way you were, or Bucky Irving, the way you were with Zach Charbonnet. He is their number one, and anytime he's not on the field, it's just a break. They bring in Keegan Jones, they bring in Colson Yankoff just to kind of change it up or just give him a rest. Yeah. Oregon is a little bit more strategic, where depending on the situation, they'll put a different back on the field. Like we've seen, he's been hurt the last couple of weeks, but Jordan James has been their goal line back, the true freshman. And then it's been a lot of Irving and Whittington in running situations. They've been almost even, but Irving a few more carries this year. And then Dollars in pass catching situations sometimes. And that's helped keep them fresh. And I think that's really a great thing to do at the running back position in particular, because guys get banged up at the running back position so often, right? You're taking so much contact, and there's so many different ways that you can, get a nick here, a ding there, a hit here, or anything of the sort. So I think they've done a really great job with that, and they know what each back presents and how to work them into the offense effectively. So can it be a big game for Bucky Irving? Yeah, but I never expect him to go for 150 or more yards. Oregon hasn't had a runner other than Bo Nix go over, I think it's in like the 110 range is the highest a running back has actually had this year, even though Irving has had some really dominant games. Like Stanford, for example, he had like 95 yards in the first half, but then Oregon took the foot off the gas a little, got more guys involved. The game plan offensively changed in the second half, and he ended with like 98 yards rushing, right? But he was really, really good in that first half. So it's really hard to predict, because it's not a Zach Charbonnet or a Tavion Thomas situation, although I know Utah's had a lot more versatility in their backfield the last few weeks. Like it's just kind of, they really do play, sounds stereotypical, you hear it a lot, but they play the hot hand pretty often with their running game. And it's been good all year long. So Oregon fans, haven't questioned it.
Awesome, man. And I won't keep you too much longer, Spencer.
I got all the time you want.
Actually,
awesome.
I have a question for Spencer. So
yeah.
I've been seeing some mock drafts with Christian Gonzalez as a top 15, top 10 pick, whereas Clark Phillips on paper has been having a little bit of a better season in terms of just overall production. What do you think about those two players? Who do you think is better? And what's your overall scouting report on Christian Gonzalez? Because I'm familiar with the player, but I'd be lying if I said I've been watching every single snap of Oregon football this season.
Yeah, I've been a huge Gonzo fan since he got on campus, and I was, there were a couple players that I hyped up coming into the year for Oregon. Christian Gonzalez was one of them. I was like, man, I think this guy's really good. I watched him at Colorado and thought, all right, yeah, that's a pretty darn good player. He's all Pac-12 honorable mention. He's got the measurables to be an NFL corner. And in terms of which one is better, I think that depends entirely on what sort of scheme they're playing in, because
right.
I think they can do different things. Like Phillip, like how tall is Clark Phillips exactly?
5'10", I believe, 5'8",
Yeah.
5'10", between.
So Gonzo's more in the 6', 6'1" range and projects a little bit more as an outside corner. But again, it depends on the scheme. But Gonzo's got great length. His hip movement is really, really good. I hate when they sit him in soft zone. I want to throw a vase across the room and break it, man. When they sit Christian Gonzalez in soft zone, because I'm like, you're wasting a really, really high level talent. And when you look at what Gonzo does well, he can just stay glued to guys. He does a really, really good job of that in man coverage. He's got good speed. He's got good instincts. The one thing that he's got to improve upon, where I think Phillips has probably got him right now, are ball skills. And we saw it last week against Washington. It looked like he had an interception and ended up getting ripped away by the Washington players as they went to the ground. There have been a couple other instances where he's blanketed on a receiver, a 50-50 ball is up, and he just can't quite find it in time to knock the ball away or maybe go for an interception. So I think Phillips has been stronger in that area. But I also think that Gonzo's probably a little bit higher level in, just staying glued to the receiver and some of the measurables that he's got. I don't know who's got the faster 40 time. I guess would be Phillips. But when you're evaluating a corner, I think that at the NFL level, you're looking at a number of different things. And most important is what I started with, which is scheme. Where is he going to fit? Like Gonzo, yeah, you can play him in the slot, but he's a guy who really thrives when he has the sideline available to him. He's a good tackler as well, and he's a fairly, I won't say overly, but he's a decently physical corner, and so I think he can thrive in those press man situations. But, I could take either one depending on which team I was and how I wanted to use them. Like if I've got two starting outside corners and I'm looking for someone who's going to come in, start right away, and be, either compete for one of those slots or be a nickel guy, if that's a possibility, I would lean Phillips. But if I'm looking for an outside corner who's got a little bit more length and it's just going to be really good in man-to-man coverage, I think that's Gonzo. So, I mean, both guys are really good. Both guys are really, really good. I think Phillips has had more big plays this year. But the other thing, which you alluded to, but the other thing with corners is sometimes the best ones don't have that many stats because the ball's not coming their way. Like a quiet DB is the best DB. And I think Christian Gonzalez represents that pretty well for Oregon. And, the only times that I see him get beat is when he's in zone coverage and these DBs are clearly being taught. And I don't know why to just not give up the big play over the top. They give up the big play over the top anyway, but they are clearly being taught to sit 7-8 yards off, retreat in zone coverage, and then come up and make a tackle. And it's just an easy pitch and catch too many times. But when Gonzo gets impressed, man, he's really, really good.
Yeah, when I look at Clark, I kind of just see a Trent McDuffie type. And they're both really good players.
Yeah.
Very, very similar play styles. And you look at McDuffie, he had some injuries early on with the Chiefs training camp, but he's been decent in the slot, hasn't really lived up to that full first-round hype. But I do think that those two players are very similar. And like you were saying, Gonzo is a much more of an outside guy. And I mean, I think he can actually have a pretty good game against Devon Bailey because Devon Bailey, he beats a lot of guys on those double moves. And you look at Christian Gonzalez, and I just don't see a player who's going to bite super frequently. I mean, he's experienced. He had a ton of playing time at Colorado, and he's been thriving this year at Oregon. So that's where I kind of shifted my focus to Kincaid. And I just see Dalton having such a big game against Oregon personally. I'm so high on him in this matchup. I think he's going to go crazy.
Yeah, I think he could, and there's a pretty sound reasoning as to why. And I also agree with you on the Devon Bailey Gonzo thing. On tomorrow's episode of Locked On Ducks, I talked with JT Wistersill, who you guys may or may not know. He hosts Locked On Utes and does a really good job.
This guy's on the show all the time.
Yeah,
Dante, that's how I found Dante.
Yeah, JT is a good dude, but he and I were talking about that, and that's the matchup individually that I hope comes into play a lot. I would like to see Gonzo shadow Vele anywhere he goes because the second corner position for Oregon has been a revolving door this year. Triquez Bridges, Dante Manning, they've had flashes, but they haven't been there consistently. But Gonzo has been the most consistent defensive player all season long, really, at any level. And I think that if he's there shadowing Devon Vele, I have a hard time seeing Vele going over maybe 60 yards receiving.
I agree with that.
I don't think he'd have a big game. I think that physically, that's the sort of guy that Gonzo matches up really, really well with. But, the Oregon pass defense has let me down more than a few times this year. So what's another week, right?
Exactly.
Hey, Dante, real quick. Are you about to get off in a few minutes? Is that your plan?
Yeah, probably within the next 10.
All right, well, I'm going to take a break, so I'll have a minute before I'm solo on this one and we bring our next guest on. So why don't you keep talking? You two keep talking. I'm going to jump off for a minute, and then I'll be back.
Yeah, sure.
For sure.
So on the note you had about Kincaid, I agree with you, and here's why. For some reason, Oregon loves running soft zone, which you can't really do when you don't have a pass rush. In Oregon last week, phantom pass rush. I mean, DJ Johnson, Brandon Doyles have been their best pass rushers consistently this year, and they were nowhere to be found. I mean, they were absent the whole time, and that concerns me. But the other thing about Kincaid is I think what Andy Ludwig does a really great job of with that Utah offense is utilizing the play action to get your defense going this way to create holes over here. And
see, now that's where I was actually impressed with Oregon. That's where I thought they did really well with like those bunch sets, and you run a little post with Troy Franklin, and it's a big play. Like I was very impressed with how they do that.
Yeah, or Oregon's offense. I don't have any reservations about Oregon's offense. Like I don't doubt that they're going to score points. I don't doubt that they're going to move the ball. The only problems they ever run into is when they almost seem to get bored and then they try to come up with some cutesy, artsy BS that, I'm like, guys, shut up and run the ball. You're inside the 5-yard line. Like they tried that thing against Washington. I don't know if you saw it last week. They lined up in a swinging gate. Then they went to their 14J jumbo package. And then we're trying to like get it off really quick. And then Bo Nix fumbles the snap and we turn over inside the 5. We forced the punt, went down and scored. So it didn't end up costing the Ducks. But once I saw him doing that, the moment they came out, I'm like, what are you doing? You've been running this package. You've been running this formation all season long. Literally nobody has stopped it. Literally nobody has stopped it. I don't know why you now feel the need to get cute and add this extra wrinkle. They've had a couple nice wrinkles to it, but there's been a play action pass to a tight end. There's been a tight end sweep. There's been a broken play that actually worked. But mostly when they need just a couple yards, they line up in that formation and they just pound it at people. And I'm like, when your offensive line is this good, you don't need to get cute. You don't need to get overly creative. So that's the only thing that ever has really stopped Oregon's offense this year is they go down, they get in the red zone, and then they just outthink the room sometimes. And that's what's gotten them into trouble. But offensively, I like what Utah does with Kincaid. They move him around a lot. I think you get him in one-on-one situations with guys like Bennett Williams and Jeffrey Bossa.
Bennett Williams was the one that I was kind of focusing on. I thought he would have a great day against him.
And Williams is not good going over the top in coverage. He doesn't have enough speed. He couldn't get to the sideline fast enough to knock away that ball in a cover 2 sink, and Penix sandwiched it in. It's a good throw, but you got to be able to make that play. It was just I don't want to relive that. Anyway, I'll just go jump in the ocean and not come back. So I think that what Kincaid does really, really well is he operates in that, kind of line of scrimmage to 15-yard area. That's where he's lethal, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. They don't take too many deep seam shots to him.
Not too many, but USC game, he had one that was like a ridiculous catch on the sideline. He had another one, like a super contested catch over the middle too. Those are over 20 air yards, I'd assume, somewhere around there. But for the most part, you're correct. Yeah.
And I think once you get into that area, Williams just doesn't have that sort of speed to be able to keep up with him. But in that 15 yards, the line of scrimmage area, I think Bennett Williams has been pretty darn good in coverage this year. So I think that's more favorable. But the question is how often that's going to happen, because Oregon's been running a lot of zone. They've been hesitant to run man coverage, probably because this defensive staff doesn't trust the players they have because they're not their guys. And, they've watched them this year, but, the way they've been coaching clearly hasn't been working. But if you have Kincaid on any of Oregon's linebackers, Jeffrey Bossa could maybe hang with him. Maybe, but any of the other ones, they're no good in pass coverage, and that's.
You don't think Sewell could?
No.
Really? Wow.
No. Noah Sewell is a really good run defender. I mean, high-level run defender, high-level blitzer as a linebacker. He's no good in pass coverage. He had
that pick against us last year in the championship game. That's why I was.
Yeah, that is the lone moment where he has displayed high-level pass coverage skills as a linebacker, because every time he sits back in zone coverage, he is looking around and he is not processing route concepts quickly. He is not taking away options, and he is left to just go make a tackle after the guy catches the ball. That's been a frequent occurrence this year, and he does a lot of things well, and he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but the Oregon linebackers have been a problem in coverage this year. Not against the run. They've made a lot of plays against the run. They've done a great job improving this season against screen passes as well. That was a big problem early in the year, but last few weeks, teams have tried that. Hasn't worked very well. Linebackers deserve a lot of credit, but still defending stuff over the middle. Utah likes to run those bunch formations where they'll have a delayed angle route after one guy clears. That could be wide open for a 20-yard play. at some point on Saturday because the Ducks just haven't been able to defend that sort of concept. They don't pass off their assignments very well. And I don't think they know their assignments in that linebacking core very well. Like it's just been a mess where you watch a replay and go, where is he going? Like you just get caught in no man's land so many times. And if I'm Andy Ludwig, I'm going almost exclusively over the middle of the field with Dalton Kincaid and, not saying, hey, go line up out wide and maybe get Christian Gonzalez on you. That's not
that is not the matchup that you
No, that's not the matchup. You take Kincaid and you put him everywhere else and you see if any of those Oregon players at the second or third level can step up and play above where they have the last few weeks, but man, I wouldn't count on it.
And Spencer, real quick, man, I hate to cut you off. I do have my next guest coming on here in a minute. But honestly, man, you are so fun to have on. Sometimes we're doing these really long podcasts. You don't know what else to say, and I can always count on you. Before you get out of here, man, tell us what your prediction. Let's imagine everything's good. Bo Nix is in at 85, 90%, and everything's good. What is your prediction for how the game goes and who really impacts the game?
Yeah, I think everyone is jumping to this is going to be a shootout. And look, I admit that is fully possible. Oregon's defense has struggled. Utah's defense has been up and down, but mostly up the last few weeks for sure. Though Stanford doesn't count. That's barely a real team. I think this is going to be a game where Utah is going to try to play some ball control. I also don't know who commented that Kincaid is scary from Locked on Ducks.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't that you? I was like, what is that?
Okay.
I'm going to be asking somebody You got your first mock account of you, so that's exciting. That's when you know you made it.
I mean, there are also other managers at the Locked On Network of it, so maybe there's somebody who's doing that. That's fascinating. I can assure you that was not me. Anyway, I actually think that this is going to be lower scoring than you'd think, and here's why. Utah fundamentally wants to run the football, and though Oregon's run defense is good, I think they can keep long drives alive by running it first couple times, getting to a 3rd and 3, right? Not gashing Oregon for 10 and 15 yards and averaging 7 yards a carry, but they could average, 3.5 to 4 yards a carry, stay committed to the run as Utah is, get to a lot of third down and manageables, and Oregon's defense on third down has been putrid this year. And I think that'll help them keep drives alive. And the best defense sometimes is a good offense when you're going up against this Oregon offense or anyone like it, right? Tennessee, TCU, anybody can score a bunch of points. Best thing you can do is keep them on the sideline. I think Coach Whittingham's going to want to do that, and I think the Utah defense is pretty solid. I do like Oregon here, though. I thought if they'd beaten Washington, they would actually lose this game, but I do not see them losing 2 games in a row at Autzen Stadium. So I'll go with the Ducks. I like them 31-23 in a lower scoring game than people think.
Well, that is awesome. Hey, and again, Spencer, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, I don't agree with your prediction, but I appreciate you coming on, man. Please come on anytime you want, man. Have a good one. See you later, Spencer.
Hey, anytime, fellas. Good to talk to everybody out there.
Thanks. Oh.
All right, too.
All right, man. Thank you so much, Dante. And I appreciate your time too, man. You have a good one. I'm going to knock you off, and then we got our next guest here in a minute. Have a good one, man.
Appreciate y'all.
Oh, I keep knocking people off too early right when they're about to say something. Sorry about that. Oh, look, it's this guy. Look, it's the troll guy being the Locked On Utes. There we go. That's funny. Okay. Anyways, while I'm waiting for our next guest to hop on, guys, if you weren't here earlier, we are giving away a signed Cam Rising auto out of 99. It is a really nice card. I know it's really shiny, so it's hard to see it. If you guys want to win that card, make sure you like the video. 2, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Seriously, you got to like the video to be entered in. But the number one thing is it's whoever's giving me the best questions and comments in the chat. Seriously, that's what's going to help drive the conversation. and help me give, now that it's just me and there's no Dante, it'll help give me some questions to ask our guests as they come on. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure you guys comment in the chat and ask questions that'll help drive the conversation that you guys want to hear. And on that note, while we're waiting for our next guest, why don't I go answer some of the questions that you guys have been talking about? We've got a lot of Oregon trolls in the chat. I've been noticing it. It's getting wild. It is getting heated. I am glad we're not, glad we're not in an actual room together. It's getting wild in there, man. Can Utah's depth overcome Oregon's star power? Yeah. I don't know what else to say there. Honestly, man, I feel really good about this game, if I'm being honest with you guys. And I don't know if I'm going to drop my predict. Oh my gosh, he's back in the chat with the trolling. I don't know if I'm going to drop my prediction yet. I think I'll save that for a little while. I think we'll have a little time later where it's just me and you guys for a little while. So I'm gonna save my prediction, but I feel really good, and I agreed with a lot of what Spencer said. Man, it was awesome of him to come on. He just brings so much content and knowledge with him. Same with Dante, dude. Those are great guys to have on. They did a great job. I just think it's a super good team we have here at Utah, and I think we throw the ball super well. I think they got exposed, guys. This is the lowest ranked passing defense in the country for Oregon. They are the worst passing defense in the country when it comes to yards per game. We are going to run up the passing yards on these guys. I feel extremely confident that Cam is going to have 275 plus, if not three. I feel really good about 300 plus as well. It feels like this is about to be a wild game for Utah. It really does. I think I did mean when I said earlier, though, where I do think that we are going to see Tavion have a good game too. I don't know if it's going to be, quite as wild as last game where he got like 180 yards or whatever, but I could see him having, a 75 to 90 yard sort of game where he does a really good job. But the number one thing that I think he's going to do is he's going to really start racking up the yards once that defense loosens up with Cam. So super cool there. Boom. And now we got our next guest, Brian Brown at Brown Bear SLC. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Hey, appreciate you being patient with me. Traffic is still a killer, believe that or not. It man.
No, I get you, man. I live in Utah County, so I usually don't have to worry about it on the way home. Oh, I get you.
Oh, what a hashtag. That might be the one redeeming part of Utah County for me. So
awesome, man. Well, I'm excited to have you on, Brian. I'll put your social on the screen here. Give me 1 second. Boom. Make sure you guys give him a follow. He is awesome, by the way. He does a bunch of video breakdowns, and he is really knowledgeable, at least from what I hear. I've heard you on a few different podcasts, I think. But the number one thing I hear him talk about is offensive line, defensive line play. I think that's, from what I get, that seems like what you're really passionate about, man.
yeah, it's definitely the kind of catalyst for everything, I guess I would say. The bigger part about it for me is just that's where everything starts. And I think once, as a coach, somebody who's coached before, working with offensive linemen, all that kind of stuff, if it doesn't start, like if you don't have a good start, it's hard to really finish everything else out. And so for me, that's kind of the easy.
Oh, I don't know if you guys could hear me there. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. We're back in action. I don't know.
You're all good. So I was saying, it's the starting point for everything. Obviously, I played it, so I understand it a little bit more. I think it's the one part of the game that gets overlooked in terms of how much everything else relies upon it, and how much of that is kind of contingent upon the play up front. But there's also a lot of technique and a lot of nuance that go into it. I think if we're ranking positions, number one is quarterback in terms of things that people don't know. And then second would be offensive line. And so I try to explain it. Sometimes I get a little snarky, and I apologize for that. But it is a really I love, especially watching Utah fans kind of get invested into it, and they've done a great job. So.
No, I'm with you 100%, man. And I think one of the big things for me, the reason I enjoy listening to your content so much is I'm on the same page with you. I think offensive line is the next most important thing after quarterback, like we talked about. And a really good offensive line can make a decent offense look great, right? That's kind of what I think. So let's talk a little bit about it. If you want to just start going, if you want to start with Utah's offensive line against Oregon's defensive line, how are you feeling about the matchups here?
Well, I think Utah's in a good spot. What really kind of makes a unique situation is that we tend to always look at matchups as like one-on-one, right?
Yeah.
And I think the unique part about it is it's not just about that Oregon defensive line. I think their defensive line is solid, reliable. They've got some guys on that defensive line that I think are pretty good. But really where I kind of feel like the problem gets to be for Utah's offensive line versus that Oregon football team and that Oregon defense is the linebacking core. And that's, when we talk about run game and everything like that, a big part of the run game is getting to the second level. And I think that's really the big concern if you're this Utah offensive line. Now, they've done a pretty good job of it in recent weeks. I think most people were probably surprised to see Johnny Maia play the way that he did. I wasn't. Thank you. I will continue to snark when it comes to offensive line play for sure. Because I've seen Johnny and had an opportunity to talk to him, kind of knew where he was coming from. His physicality, his size, all that kind of stuff plays into it. He's just a bigger player than Paul Miley. Now, is he as experienced or as knowledgeable? Definitely not. But he was able to get good movement, and I think you saw the difference in the run game with a bigger player in there. And he was adequate to good in pass protection. I think the beauty of this offense is that as long as Cameron Rising's back there playing quarterback, your protection's always going to be pretty good because he's so good in the pocket. So that's kind of where I zoom into this is can you get movement? And I think the unique part about it is a guy like Jordan Riley who's been there for a while. He's a big player, and then DJ Johnson's another guy that's kind of been back and forth. And he's been a good leader for them, so he's a guy that I kind of am curious to see how he does against Satao Lomea, for example. I would think that's where they'll line him up and try to attack, because Braden Daniels is just so reliable. He's been so good this year, and I think you had the PFF grades up there for a second with him. He's grading out well, but it's not telling the full story because he does so much of the tough work. Now, I think everybody's seen the Keaton Bills highlight where he's just manhandling his guy into the end zone and getting a pancake. Those two have really gelled well together. And so I think that's, if they can do a good job of getting man on man, so player on player, and getting movement, whether it's to the side or getting depth to where you can get to linebackers and picking up wherever the linebackers are coming from, then I think Utah's got a really great chance to run on this Oregon defense. And even more so, we've seen that this defense in the secondary is susceptible to, big plays and big passes. And you have to think that guys like Devon Vele, a healthier Dalton Kincaid can hit some of those 20, 25-yard routes. We've seen Jalen Dixon be a little bit more involved in the offense as well. I have to think maybe they'll try to go over the top a couple times to him. So that's kind of where I look at it is, can Utah's, offensive line go from first level to second level in the run game? Protection wise, like I said, I don't worry too much about it because we really haven't seen a lot of breakdowns in protection. And a lot of that is just credit to Cam Rising.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. Cam Rising is an awesome icing on the cake, isn't it? It's like anytime you see the offensive line go break apart and it's just a free play for the defense, you're like, oh, we got Cam Rising. We'll be all right.
It really is. And some of it is just like his pocket presence. Some of it is obviously everybody knows he's a thick boy. I would love to see Rhino Pancake Sewell. That would be so dope.
Me too,
but he he has that presence in the pocket, so you're not going to bring him down easy because he's big and strong. He moves extremely well in the pocket. He's got great footwork. We haven't really seen him throw off platform, meaning he squares up well and delivers the ball. But even when he doesn't, he still has some pretty good zip on it. He's no Patrick Mahomes or some of these guys out there that are just throwing these absolute missiles. But he does a really good job of getting out of the pocket, keeping eyes downfield, and if he's got to run, it opens up the defense. And I think you're seeing it in the NFL now. You look at a guy like Justin Fields, who all of a sudden they're taking the lid off with him, and he's running a ton more. And look what it's done for that, Chicago offense. So as long as you've got Cam Rising back there, you're in good shape. I think the stark difference between how good he is really evident when Bryson Barnes came in against Washington State. And that's not a knock on Bryson. Like, he's just not Cam Rising.
Yeah, and Bryson Barnes, he's pretty good, but you're right, he's no Cam Rising. I think there's something about when you just need a play. That's what I always say. Like Cam Rising, if you're not watching the game and you look at the stats, obviously the QBR is fantastic, but outside of that, the stats aren't incredible. What is incredible is when you watch him. It's like that's how you have to figure it out. The 3rd and 15, the 3rd and 8 when you need a play. It's just like he does it every damn time. So if he's at 100%, that's a big time difference for Utah. And with that, Ryan, can you tell us how do you see this game going? I know a lot of people have come on and given a lot of different opinions tonight. How do you see this game going? Who do you think are the playmakers for Utah on both sides of the ball?
It's a unique matchup, and if you believe whatever the Oregon player that said that Bo Nix is out today, I think that puts Utah at a pretty severe advantage. Just because Bo Nix has been so good within that offense. I don't necessarily put a lot of stock into that. It feels like one of those things that, especially with Dan Lanning coming from SEC country, that it might be a plant. They like to play, I don't want to say dirty, but sneaky down there. I think it does come down in a lot of ways to what's up front. I think the bigger concern for Oregon in terms of the trenches is that they're on the 3rd string center, 2nd string guard, and I have a lot of confidence in that guard because I know who it is. It's James Powers Johnson. He played at Corner Canyon. I've seen him play for a long time. Know what he brings to the table. But that it's the consistency. We saw it from Utah, right? In years past when they lose a center and things kind of melt down. So you wonder how well you can get together. The other thing about it, I feel like the coaching staff knew that they were going to come up against this game. They'll have all the bells and whistles in the game plan that they need. There's no point in holding anything back right now. So I think it's going to be a battle though, and that's this is not the same team that Oregon was last year. This is not the Cristobal era where we get down by 14 or 21 and we collapse. This is a tough Oregon team. They play well. They're going to be fired up after that Washington loss, and so Utah's going into a tough environment. If they get out of there with a win, which most of the time when I make predictions, it's just gut feel, and I've watched enough game. We can break it down by position group and how they attack this and how they attack that. There's always going to be something I'll miss. But gut feel, I think that Utah can beat Oregon on Saturday. And I just, this team has been through so much. They're such a tough, gritty team. You're going to have some guys that are going to be healthier this week. You've got a guy in Tavion Thomas who's getting back to form. So I kind of feel like they're going to get Oregon at home, and that's a real accomplishment because that'll mean Oregon will have lost 2 in a row and at home too. So,
yeah, I feel so good about this. I don't know why, man. I was nervous about this game up until recently. At Bo Nix or no Bo Nix, I don't know what happened. Once I saw that they have the worst pass yards allowed per game in the entire country, that really changed it. I don't know what. That's wild. Even with one big game like Washington, it's like you got a pretty damn good quarterback for you guys to be allowing 300 plus yards a game.
Yeah, I mean the thing that I think really shook everything up was just Washington made it look almost like easy at times, right? And they were able to stay neck and neck. Now Washington's got a slew of good receivers. I go back and forth on Twitter with people about who the best wide receiver in the Pac-12 and why is it just Washington's wide receiver core. But like I get, you've got the USC guys and everything else, but Rome Odunze is a phenomenal wide receiver, great route runner. Same with Jalen McMillan. And so they really exposed a lot with those Oregon DBs. and that defense has just always been susceptible to a few plays. The part about it was that they started really cooking after that BYU game, and it was kind of through the, I won't say buttery part of the schedule, but they weren't really going up against anybody at that point in time. They still haven't played Oregon State, who I think is a really tough physical football team. They did a great job against UCLA. That was UCLA coming off a bye. I guess Chip's terrible off of bye weeks. I don't know. But they didn't look the same. And really, I mean, Oregon was just smart with Dorian. They just wide nine and had athletic ends, just kind of pinch him inside and he couldn't get loose. So I think we gave a lot of weight to that win. And we're seeing that UCLA is probably not the team that they were against Utah. And Utah definitely was not at their best against UCLA. So that's when, as you start to look at the season as a whole, you realize, like, yeah, there are some holes there with Oregon that you can expose. And I mean, the beauty of it for Utah is that you've got Dalton Kincaid and Devon Vele, who are going to be matchup nightmares against everybody. You're seeing Logan Kendall get involved in the offense. He is just an absolute beast on the edge. What he's doing in the run game, and people don't always watch it, but that inline tight end is so critical in run blocking. You have to be able to set the edge, because that edge player is either going to allow your backs to bounce to the outside, or it's going to, if guys are trying to force inside, or the edge player is going to get movement on that and cut inside. And it's just, he has done such a phenomenal job, and it's a shame that he doesn't have another year there. And yes, definitely need to get up to Logan soon.
No, I think that was a great point. One thing I remember after that UCLA game is everyone was talking about DTR, and I thought DTR had a good game for sure. But I was like, if you watch that game, it was Charbonnet that killed us. I mean, like, we would plug up the hole and he'd hit the cutback so damn hard and go for 25, 30 yards. And I was shocked how many people were praising DTR after the game. For me, it was like, it just showed me just how damn good Charbonnet is. I think some NFL team is going to get a steal in Charbonnet, because I don't think he's getting the hype that he probably deserves. And like you said about Logan, I actually had him on the channel for an interview. He's a super cool guy, man. I love Logan Kendall, cool guy. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching his film, and there were highlights against Penn State on his film. I don't know if you've seen those, but it was part of his tape. And I remember thinking, like, that's pretty good film against Penn State. The rest of it's against FCS, but he was a man amongst boys at the FCS level, just throwing dudes around. And I remember thinking, if he could bring 50 to 70% of what he's doing at the FCS level to the FBS level, he's about to be a monster. And I think he's brought a lot more than that, and he looks great. It was awesome to see him get a touchdown last week.
It was, and well deserved. And I think he's done a really good job of mitigating the loss as much as possible as you can with Brant Keithy. I think, the like you mentioned, the physicality, the physical traits never were a concern with him. He's incredible athlete. He's a massive, like, the Rhino is really the perfect nickname for him, because he is just built with like these muscles, and like you see him in person, you're just like, oh my gosh, like, you are just nothing but like granite on top of granite with layers of more granite over the top. So he's done a great job of doing it, of bringing that. And I think that's where Utah can really fight through in this game is bringing that physicality to the table. And, we'll see what happens. It's going to be a wild one. And it's Pac-12 after dark, 8:30 kick. We're already talking about, jammies with me and my friends where we'll be watching the game. I'm very optimistic with Utah's chances, but also I'm not going to sit here and say, like, yeah, they'll steamroll over Oregon. It's going to be, it's going to be a contest for sure.
I find the 8:30 kick a little disrespectful. I got to be honest with you. Name 3 games that are bigger than this game this weekend. I mean, name 2.
Yeah, and I think that was the big problem, is like when Oregon lost last week, it took it out of like being the college football playoff game, and so now all of a sudden they have to go switch it up and go USC UCLA, because that's the baby. And it's just, I think that misses the point of what the great matchup is, and that's kind of sad. because I think we've
Yeah.
devolved into this point where it's all about the playoff. It's all about what team is positioning where, and we're missing the great matchups. And I think there's a lot of great storylines to this game. So, like you said, 8:30 kick, it's going to be rough. It's a problem that Utah always faces, and they're always going to face it until something happens. And that's one reason why I really like the idea of the crossover games with the ACC. You start playing some East Coast games and getting some East Coast attention. That's big for the program.
And East Coast games are earlier. So that's
nice. I mean, nothing like a noon kick. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that for a road game for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on that, Brian, so you want to give us your score prediction if you have one for the Oregon Utah game?
Yeah, I'll throw it out there. I think it's going to be 38-31 Utah, and I think that they come out of there with a touchdown advantage. I don't know why. I think that Utah's actually going to make a field goal, other than Jaden Redding gave me hope, and there's bound to be a scenario where they get one in soon here. It's just it's wild to see the kicking game kind of like devolve the way it has. But I think that Utah's physicality just kind of overwhelms the Ducks, and they start to run away with it.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel like what's going to happen is I'll give my prediction later. So let me give you a few little prop bets. So with that, Cam Rising over under 285 yards.
Throwing, right?
Yep. Yeah. Rushing
in the throw game, yeah. Because if we're going total yards, I might take the over on that, no problem. He's going to have to throw it. I don't know if they get to 285. I'll take over.
Yeah, I was going to say worst passing defense in the country. Come on.
Yeah.
All right, Tavion Thomas over under 85 yards.
He'll hit 100, but it'll be close. And I think they'll use a variety of guys. They'll use Tavion Mackay and whoever else, probably some Nate Johnson too.
Yeah. Bo Nix over under 300 all purpose.
Assuming he plays. Yeah. I mean, if they hold him under 300, I think Utah's going to win that one no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Man, I would say I'm going to take the over on that one. I'm just an over guy.
Dude, we're going to have a hell of a game if it's going the way you think it
that's what I'm hoping for, man. I want to see sparks flying and offense and all that kind of stuff. I like that.
No, I'm with you, man, 100%. Okay, Oregon's running backs, so, Whittington and Irving, over 150.
Yeah, ooh, man. And we've seen this Utah defense struggle in the run game, right? And I mean, I think as a group, they're almost 200 yards a game between Irving, Whittington, and Nix, and so 150 seems right on the dot. I'll take under because I feel like Utah's going to do their best to stop it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll make Bo Nix throw.
I wouldn't be surprised if one of them individually got over 75, but I'd be surprised if the two of them together were over 150.
Yeah, and that's really the bread and butter of their offense is they're able to open up those creases, and Kenny Dillingham's done a great job with that offense.
Yeah.
Not bad for a guy who only played high school football, I guess.
Yeah. That's me, so I get you. And Utah's defense over under 3 sacks.
Ooh, I gotta go over because it's the Jonah Ellis effect. He's just loitering everywhere these days, so I'll go over with that.
Yeah, Gabe Reed's a beast too, man. And honestly, Samodi Peppa, man, what an animal! I don't know if you remember, there was a play last game, and he didn't even make the play, but I just posted on Twitter. He threw a guard. You might know the play I'm talking like. 5-8 yards, like just tossed him. I was like, damn, bro, that's scary.
Well, you mentioned that, and I got to interview him in the spring, and I asked him straight up, I was like, who's the best pass rusher on the team? And I was like, because I think it's you. And he kind of looked at me, and he was trying to be really humble about it, but that's why he is so physically strong. And when you've got that ability to hit a dude and throw him with your upper body strength, the way that he's built, it's such a weapon.
That's awesome. All right, Brian, and before I get you out of here, man, anything else you want to go over?
No, you do a great job. I think as soon as there's a commitment that pops up, I almost instantly see an interview with you here on YouTube. So, really excited to be on and looking forward to the game. And regardless of what happens, it's been a tremendous season and a lot of fun, as always, watching the Utes play football. There's nothing better.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for the kind words, man. And thanks so much for coming on. Give him a follow, guys, at Brown Bear SLC. And hopefully we pull off that win Saturday. Have a good one, Brian.
Yeah, go Utes.
Go Utes. All right, that was awesome of him. Guys, we have had so many awesome guests, and believe it or not, we've still got 2 more to come on the way. We've got a little bit of a guest. Oh, dude, you always know Greg's going to come in with the freaking super chat. Greg, love it. Go Utes, beat the Ducks, baby. I love it. Thank you so much, Greg. You are more than generous. Again, man, very cool of you. Very cool of you, Greg. While we've got a little downtime till our next guest, Greg, let me know if there's anything you want me to talk about. We've been going a while, so I probably covered it already, but I'll talk about it again if you want me to. So with that, thanks again for the super chat, Greg. Let's go ahead and talk about kind of how I feel. And before that, if you guys are just dropping in, don't forget, or you might not know yet, we are giving away a Cam Rising signed auto card out of 99. Super, super nice card, guys. Honestly, it's freaking beautiful. Really, it is. It's a beautiful card. I'm a big sports card fan. I'm sure you guys have noticed that by the fact that I always give away sports cards. I feel like it's a really awesome bang for the buck. So I would love to keep this card, but I'm going to give it to one of you guys. Like the video. If you guys want the card, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you guys are dropping questions in the comments. Whoever I feel like throughout the entire show was giving the best questions and helping, keep good questions for all the guests we have on is going to be the person that gets the card. So that is awesome. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about how I see the game going. You guys have heard me hint at it a little bit. There's a lot of good. There's a lot of good on both sides of the ball, dude. This Oregon team is going to run the ball on us, and that can be very frustrating. Grow My Presence is super cool giveaway. Yeah, really cool, man. Tyler says if we win out, go to the championship and win, go to the Rose Bowl and win. Yeah, and honestly, guys, I feel like sometimes we're feeling like the season's lost because we're not going to the CFP. But winning the Rose Bowl would make this a better season than last season. That's still a really big deal. And when we go to that Rose Bowl, we're probably either playing Ohio State or Michigan. So that's a tough matchup, and that'd be a big win. Capisi with the $5 super chat. Dude, I love you guys dropping the super chats. That's so sick. Seriously, you guys don't even know how awesome that is. And I know you guys watch the channel a lot, the two of you, and I appreciate you guys watching. I love making the content. And I appreciate the support, guys. Let me see. This Ducks guy says, let's get him out of here. Go Utes. Great work on the stream. Thanks a lot, PC. And when you guys drop the super chat, seriously, guys, if you have anything you'd like me to spend a little bit of extra time on, I am more than happy to do so. Just let me know, right? Like I that's the number one thing. He said, how does this Ducks dude have nothing better to do? I don't know, man. They're hyped about the game too. It's kind of like us after UCLA, right? You're still optimistic, but you're not feeling great. So that's where they're at. Don't mind them. So how I see this going, I think we're going to throw the ball for a lot of yards, guys. I think we're going to rack up the passing yards. I feel like a lot of the guests I've had on are very knowledgeable, but they don't seem to feel the same, which is surprising to me. Like, I think Michael Penix is a very, very good quarterback. I don't think he's that much better than Cam Rising. I actually think Cam Rising's the better quarterback. Maybe Penix has a better arm in general, but he's not the better quarterback than Cam. He threw for 400 yards on these guys. I think Cam's pretty confidently going to break 300 yards passing. Duck season, the guy that's been trolling all damn day just dropped a $2 super chat. Spend more time talking about the poverty U of U. Well, hey, man, I'm not going to spend more time talking about that, but I'm going to talk about U of U, but I appreciate it either way. I appreciate that. It's awesome trolling, and it's all in good fun. And really, Kabisi said the stream covered it all and really made me hype for the upcoming 3-peat. Well, hey, it's not over yet, guys. I got 2 more really cool guests coming on that I think you guys will appreciate. We should have our next one on in about 5 minutes here, and we'll be going till about 9:30, guys. Oh, damn, another super chat. Jack with the $10 super chat, dude. That's so sick, man. Thank you, guys. You guys are too generous. Seriously, I love the super chats, but drop a comment with it, guys. I want to talk about what you guys want me to talk about. Like when you guys do the super chats, I do a lot. I really want to spend some time on what you want me to talk about. So I see us running the ball actually reasonably well. I think what's going to happen is this is a really good rush defense. Just so you guys know, they're number 14 in the country when it comes to rush defense. I'm going to talk a little bit of stats while we're going here. So rushing offense for Oregon, super good, 10th in the country at 236 yards per game. Utah also very good, 17th in the country at 206 yards per game. So both teams are really good at running the ball. But the difference is that Utah has an above average rushing defense, but we all know that it has struggled at times against some better competition. Capici says 9:30. Yep, 9:30, baby. That's why this is the ultimate live show. Ultimate live show, dude. We're going for 3 freaking hours, bro. And I hope you guys finish this final stretch with me. It should be a fun time. So they have a really good rushing defense in Oregon. They're 14th in the country at 109.1 yards per game. So I do think we'll run the ball well. I think we'll probably get somewhere in the 150 rushing yards range. But what I think is going to happen is we're really going to air it out, and that's how we're going to run the ball. Where I think Oregon might not they're a good passing offense, 282.6 passing yards per game. I think their offense is not going to be as much of a mismatch for our defense as our offense is for theirs. And then the big thing, guys, the big difference between Utah and Oregon is the scoring defense. That's what a lot of people haven't talked about, right? So the scoring defense, Utah is 26th in the country because we stop people in the red zone. Even though we do let up a good amount of yards, we get stops in the red zone. We're only letting up 21.4 points per game because we're stopping them in the red zone, where Oregon is 80th in the country, letting up 28.9 yards per game. So almost 30 points per game. And so my prediction for this game, really similar to Brian's, I'm not going to say we win by 10 because every time I've said that we lost. I said that against Florida and UCLA. So I'm going to go out of my way not to say that. I do think we're going to win this pretty significantly. So because I'm not going to say 10, I'll go with 11. We win this game 38-27 for Utah. I think our passing game will rack it up against them. When you look at their receivers, they have one very good receiver. He's really good in Troy Franklin, but he's kind of the guy, right? They have 2 other okay receivers at 65 grades. I'll put them up on the screen here, but this is where we're going to have the big mismatch. I mean, we have 2 very good corners. Let me actually pull this up where they have good corners, but their receivers, I don't think they're going to be able. I think Troy Franklin is not going to take. He's not going to take what's his name, Clark Phillips, for a ride. Clark Phillips is going to hang with them all damn night, and he's going to be just fine. Where the rest of these guys, I mean, which one of these guys is going? I guess this really tall guy Thornton is going to try to go toe-to-toe on jump balls with Maya Vaughn. Well, good luck, dog. Good luck with that. I'm not saying he's not good, but I don't think you're hanging with Maya Vaughn. I mean, Vaughn's grading out super well, and I think Clark Phillips will shut down Troy Franklin or at least limit him, right? And so even if they're running the ball pretty well, I think we'll stay strong and not let them get a bunch of passing yards. So I feel really good about that. This running back room, the rushing offense for Oregon has me, I think we're going to be just fine, but we have struggled against really good rushing teams, which is kind of a stressful matchup, but we've gotten a lot better. Okay, so Jack dropped a $10 super chat. So let's spend a little time talking about Jack's comment here. Utah's getting better each year as a program. The question to me is how hungry would he be to go to the CFP? How hungry would he be? I think this was directed towards someone else. It was a Tyler. I think you're talking about Witt. I've heard some rumors in the past 48, 72 hours that Witt might actually be out of here after this year. I mean, there's always those rumors, right? But I did hear that. That is something I have heard. I hope Witt comes back, dude. It's almost like a scary thought to think about Oregon without Witt. Not that we're not a great team without him, but he's just so damn good. I mean, he's just a beast for such a long time. And it just feels like we're so close. Why would he leave before getting at least going to the college football playoff? I feel like that would be, at least getting there would be a big deal. Steven says, liking the video and already subscribed. Thank you, Steven. Make sure all you guys like the video. It helps a lot getting it out to more Utes fans. And how much is Bo Nix's ankle going to affect his throwing? He had no power in the Hail Mary pass and no surgery of his right ankle. That's a tough one. I can't comment too much on that. I really don't know that much about his injury. We have our next guest on, though, guys. Super cool guy, Alex Markham of Rivals. Alex, a guy I've been chatting with for a while now since I started making these videos. Alex, thank you so much for coming on, man. How you doing tonight?
What's going on, bud? Good, man. You?
I'm doing well. Just talking a lot of Utah, Oregon, and my head's starting to spin a little. This is 2.5 hours in.
I don't know how you do that long, man. I mean, God, when I was doing the podcast with Coach Mack and a whole bunch of the former players on, when I was over at the Zone radio station, stuff like that, man, like hour and a half hit and we were burned out. But at the same time, too, it flew by, too. I mean, like me and Coach Mack, dude, you could just, dude, like we'd both go squirrel, right? And it would. Oh God, me and him could probably fill up 4 hours alone, but yeah, it takes a toll.
Well, that's a big reason why I made sure when I was going to set this up that I like racked up as many guests as possible, because I was like, I'm going to need other people to talk. I'm not going to be able to talk that long. And I'm going to put your Twitter handle up on the screen. So why don't we go ahead and dive in, Alex? Tell us a little bit about your initial thoughts about the game. How are you feeling? How do you think the two teams match up against each other?
It's going to be a slugfest. I mean, first off, is Oregon going to come in there pissed off with the chip on their shoulder, or are they going to come in with kind of like a psychological, like, oh shit, it's Utah, right? Because I mean, let's be honest, Utah thumped the hell out of them last year. Now,
and most of those players are still here. Yeah.
Most, yeah. Now, at the same time, too, the defense has been improving. And they look good. I mean, the stats back it up that it's a good defense, right?
Yeah.
But still, I mean, the one thing is that they're vulnerable when quarterbacks can run the ball. If it is Bo Nix can run the ball, right? So there's that bit of gamesmanship going on right now. There's that interview earlier from an Oregon kid that said that it was going to be Ty Thompson, their backup. So you don't know if that was true or not. I think it is, but at the same time, too, you can't take that for granted, right? You got to prepare for Nix. Again, he's the different. He is the difference between last year and this year when it comes to that Oregon team, and it's a huge difference. You get a solid quarterback like that, and you're not going to have the stupid plays that was really costing Oregon, not just in the Utah games last year, but throughout that entire damn season. Oregon's team last year was really, really damn good. I'd probably even venture to say that they were better than this year's team.
They didn't have a quarterback.
Their quarterback was garbage.
Yeah.
Now, if you go and you watch the NFL preseason stuff, I don't know what got into that dude, because he was looking good with the Ravens, but he was definitely Utah's MVP outside of Devin Lloyd and Cam Rising last year. So,
yeah, dude, he was. You remember that sideline throw?
Oh God, did you see that?
helmet.
I can't remember the dude's Twitter handle. You're gonna have to find it on
the helmet one, right? I think I saw you.
Yeah. But the dude usually goes by Puddles. He did like Harry the Husky thing, like right now for last week or whatever, and he hasn't changed it, right? And so that's what his tag kind of looks like right now. But he does those things just always mocking, right? And I think he did a pretty funny shirt with that same, sideline throw last year. I can't remember, but yeah, this year he's like Utah's new hand painted helmet coming for the Oregon game.
Let me see if I can find it.
Oh god, it's nuts.
I'm pulling up your Twitter to find it. I found it. I'm gonna put it on the screen just so you guys can see. Give this guy a follow here. It's worth it. It's a funny little page he's got here. So boom. So this is the hand painted helmets Utah is wearing to play Oregon. It's just a joke, but it's these are the hand painted helmets Utah is wearing to play Oregon. It's at the Sco Ducks guy. So give him a follow. Yeah, that was really funny. I like that too.
He's a good follow. He interacts well with Ute fans. So has a lot of respect for Utah. So yeah. He's a good one. But
no, it's kind of funny, isn't it? It's like Utah and Oregon. It's like all respect. Like I think Utah and Oregon feel like these are the top two teams. But then when it's time to go, it gets pretty intense.
It's all respect when it comes to Utah and Oregon. It's all like there's a bit of respect, but there's kind of some hatred when it comes to Utah and USC, right? So it's interesting. I mean, the line play is going to be, kind of going back to what you were asking a minute ago. The line play is going to be really crucial here because, Oregon center might be missing the game too, and he's a stud. Oregon's got one of the absolute top offensive lines in the entire country, so we'll see. I mean, at the rate Utah is starting to get to the quarterback, that's pretty scary. But at the same time, too, those last 2 weeks, it's like I try to caution so many people that it's like, look, it was Arizona and it was Stanford. It's like it's good to see the progress, but let's see it against Oregon. And I mean, preferably I want to see Knicks play because I want Utah to beat the best. But at the same time too, it's Utah. If Ty Thompson is starting against Utah, Utah should have a lot of confidence because here's a guy that was one of the top rated quarterbacks in the country 2 years ago, but he can't figure it out at the college level.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing, and is grading out at under a 60 on PFF, which usually they're pretty generous to quarterbacks. So
look, too though, like here's the other thing is like I believe if he starts this weekend, it would be his first start. He's never really got extended action. He's had mop-up minutes and he's had injury minutes. So you don't know what a guy like that can do when he actually gets his full chance. But at the same time, too, I mean, if Anthony Brown, right? That was the kid's name last year, the quarterback last year. If he started over him last year, I mean, look, I get that the kid was a true freshman, but at certain points in the season when everybody was calling for it and they wouldn't do it, it's just like that's pretty telling.
There must be a reason, right?
How highly rated the kid was, right? And then, for them to feel like, okay, well, we got a kid that was one of the absolute top-rated players in the entire country when he was recruited out of high school, but we don't trust him, so we're going to go to the transfer portal. I don't know, man.
Not a good look for Thompson. Speaking of the transfer portal, this upcoming year, we didn't prep this, but any positions you think Utah would be looking to hit? I mean, the transfer portal's coming up here. Any positions you think Utah could be looking to hit in the transfer portal?
Oh God, you had to spring this on me.
No, sorry. If you're not ready for it,
you're good. You're good. I mean, here's the thing. It's so fluid, right? Because who knows out of all those guys that walked, who all is actually going to come back, right?
Yeah.
Just because they walked, it does not mean that they're leaving. Okay. Yeah. Additionally, on all that, you don't know who's going to transfer out. So at the same time, with all that stuff, I mean, you take a look at things. Utah had 3 defensive tackles basically quit from the start of the season. Okay, all 3 guys were supposed to be crucial in that damn rotation. So, I can see them potentially picking up at least a defensive tackle. Yeah. From there, let's see here, man.
Tight end, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, tight end's an obvious one. Tight end's definitely an obvious one. I was just kind of trying to think more on the defensive side first. So defensive tackle, maybe a cornerback but that one's going to be more for depth play than anything else, man. I mean, they're pretty well rounded there, and Samaya Vaughn is absolutely breaking out. Samaya Vaughn, I think I told you when we were talking the very first time, he's 6'3" and runs a 4.3 40. Okay,
I didn't know he ran a 4.3.
Yeah, and the confidence that he is building in those games, is just nuts. I mean, the dude's on fire right now. So I mean, that's probably after Clark Phillips. I mean, no offense to Broughton, that might be your next great corner at Utah. But offensive side of the ball. Okay, so like even before offense, kicker, you gotta
Yeah,
kicker, man, dude. That's it's brutal. It's so
honestly, it's
brutal.
one of my favorite things of the live games when they've recently kicked it into the end zone and the whole crowd goes wild. It's so funny to hear. Like, you notice that every time.
I don't hear it that well up in the booth, but oh god,
It's so funny.
It's so bad, man. And then Baumeister, I mean, he booms the ball in practice and he can't do it in the game. So it's, I don't know if it's a psychological thing and they have to do what they can to try to work him through that. And then next thing you know, he's booming it next year. But I mean, you gotta have an alternative there. Offensively, definitely tight end. BYU's Hulker is gonna be one. I mentioned him. You also got to look at Logan Fano as well. If he does indeed go on that transfer portal, I mean, it's not hard to see the writing on the wall on some things where it's like literally like the Twitter damn wall where his father, I think his name's Bingham, a few weeks ago, ended up linking Whittingham and Coach Powell to a retweet of one of his nephews, right? And we all know that family's going through drama at BYU right now. But others offensively, running back could be one that they have to take a look at.
Yeah.
Just don't know, because I mean, look how crazy that changed this year. And I'm not sold on Glover yet. I'm just not. Jaquindon needs to figure out his pad level. If he does that, he's gonna be a rock star. But that pad level stuff, that's also gonna help him with controlling the ball, and holding on to it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about him, but he does need to figure that out, because I mean, you saw that game where he got 97 or 98 yards.
Yeah,
it was electrifying before he got hurt. But yeah, I mean, Tavion, obviously nobody expects Tavion back. I'm glad that he's kind of pulled his head out and doing what he's doing now. Which I need to make a comment on that in a second. But and then Mekhi Bernard's another one where it's like, I knew at the start of the year that there was a chance that he was going to want to leave and test the pro waters. But I don't agree with it at all.
Yeah.
He's been hurt all year, So who knows with the running back position? I mean, they're high on Chris Curry. That sucked when he went out for them.
Yeah, and then you don't know what he's going to look like after the injury. Like, it sucks to say. Right. It's just the truth.
I mean, he had that same injury in high school.
Okay.
So we'll see, but who knows? Recovery time. But at the same time, too, I mean, with Curry, I mean, he was getting ready to take over Tavion's stuff.
He was looking really good.
Well, he was looking, and that's everything I've been hearing in the off season, right? What's he saying? I think Glover just needs. I mean, here's the thing, okay, is Glover needs to lose weight. He's 5'7", 207, and I don't think it's all good weight. He definitely needs to lose it, because if you watch him, he doesn't have that shiftiness that you would expect, right? And some of the stuff that you saw on his high school tape. I've told everybody before, that a lot of people would use the Ty Jordan comparison. Do not do that with me. Never use that comparison. Screw that, right? Because he's literally somewhere on the spectrum of Ty Jordan and Jordan Wilmore. He's better than Wilmore, but he's a lot closer to Wilmore on that spectrum than Ty Jordan. It's not a comparison. And that's nothing against Glover at all. Let's see, man. I mean, wide receiver there. it's gonna suck with if they actually lose Vele. But I mean, they've got enough young guys in the program. The big key thing that they are going to be going after is they are going to have to hit if Cam does indeed leave, like a lot of people are thinking, and like he kind of alluded to, right? You got to go in the transfer portal. Barnes, to me, I mean, he could prove me wrong, but to me,
Hey, Johnson looks pretty damn good. I'd probably get an insurance in the transfer portal. But yeah,
Barnes is your perfect number 2 that any school would want. Okay, just doesn't fuss, doesn't complain, just does his job. He's ready at a moment's notice, right? Nate Johnson, he's looked extremely good in practice and scout team from everything I've heard, and he soaks things up like a sponge. But you just don't know with him yet. I saw some people on Twitter saying like, "Oh my God, that was a beautiful throw." Can you believe it was a simple throw, and he was cutting to the right initially.
Yeah, and let's be honest, it could have been a disaster.
It's kind of a misdirection thing, and then throwing it back. So it was still a Corbin Laux. It was a Corbin Laux pass from when Laux was.
And it's like that type of pass when you decide to make that decision, it doesn't always go well. You throw it back across the field. All right, we got our next guest here, Alex, and we had a bit of a scheduling issue, but I appreciate you coming on so much, man. Make sure you guys follow Alex, and Alex, maybe signing day or something like that. You and I will get on another live stream, and we'll have it out. Sound like a plan?
Yeah, man. Probably after signing day. I gotta look out for the subscribers, buddy. So
no, I'm with you. Yeah. Day after, we'll do it. All right, Alex. Thanks so much, man. Have a good one.
Thanks, man. Take care.
All right, guys. And before we bring our next guest on, I just want to remind you guys again, the Cam Rising signed auto out of 99 that is going to be given away after this stream. So I'm going to give it away after the Oregon game. And how we're going to decide that is you have to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment. And whoever has the best comments throughout the entire video, whether it's after the video or during the live stream, is going to be the person that wins it. And on that note, let's bring on our next guest. We got Josh Reynolds here of SB Nation. That is a clean UTAP, man. I like that. That's a nice one.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. The little cream on it, I had to pick it up when I saw it. There,
yeah, UTAPs I like that.
Unless I got maybe a perfectly circle head, so I have to fit in New Era stuff, and it's kind of hard to find a solid Utes New Era hat.
Oh, sure. Hey, well, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I know it's late. Let me drop your Twitter handle up here. Give me 1 second. But I know we were going to talk defense. So in general, why don't you go ahead and get us started? How are you feeling about the defense in this matchup, man?
Good. I'm feeling good. Obviously, I was listening right before with Alex on here, and he kind of brought up some good points. I'm sure you've been talking about the entire broadcast. But with the whole – whether it's a smoke screen, whether Bo Nix is actually playing or not, I think that's all. Clearly that's what it's all going to come down to. So yeah, it just the last 2 games, Alex nailed this as well. It's like, okay, our defensive front has looked unbelievable, but at the same time, we need to take a step back and realize, like, okay, let's look at the opponent. Let's calm down a little bit, because every game we have played against a mobile, good quarterback, it's almost like laughable at some plays where the dude just sits there in the pocket, does whatever he wants for 10 seconds. Yes, we have an unbelievable secondary. Our DBs are amazing. I love our safeties, but it's like, how long do you expect them to be able to lock their man down?
Really?
When the dude's dancing around for 15 seconds. So that's what I'm nervous about. And then obviously it just thinking about Utah football, right? My entire life, it's okay, run game. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we have a huge defensive line. Yep. We stop the ball. So looking at this year's team, obviously with Van Fillinger being out, Jonah Ellis is awesome, but it's kind of funny seeing like a 83 jersey on the defensive line. It just, I don't know. It's the defense has surprised me. I've loved us so far, but it's just not your stereotypical Utah football team. And honestly, I think that's just a testament to how deep we are. Like, I think that we're with Tavion, with all of our injuries at running back, that we're like, okay, cool. We're just going to air it out now. And then when Keithy goes down, when Kincaid's out, it's like, all right, cool. Now we're going to throw to some wide receivers and get Vele involved. It's wild, and it's kind of obviously fun to see, but it's just not the same Utah football team that I'm accustomed to.
I think it has been really impressive. I remember someone was talking about it earlier, and they kept going, so I forgot to bring it up. But the depth this year is like we Washington State is not a crappy team, and we had a backup quarterback, and we just went in there, we stepped up, and we just made a statement and beat them. I mean, we shut them down to 17 points, one of the higher scoring offenses in the country, and that was pretty awesome. And I wanted to follow up on what you were saying about quarterbacks spending all day in the pocket. I think it even gets worse. Well, what'll happen? It happened a bunch against USC, against UCLA, Florida. It's they step up in the pocket, and we don't do a great job of containing them, and then they roll out, and no one around them, and just hang out there towards the sideline until someone gets open. Like you're standing there screaming at the TV, like, what is going on here, dude?
Yeah, you nailed it. And it's honestly, it's been some of the most frustrating things. I was in Florida, I was at the game, was at UCLA, was at USC, and it just seeing that happen right in front of you, there's nothing more frustrating. But you're right. It is the USC game, especially. It was kind of laughable. Like our seats are in the north end zone, and we're literally sitting there. Our entire section. It got to the point of past frustration, and everybody started laughing. Where it's like, dude, Williams is just chilling, doing whatever he wants, and then he'll bust out like a 60-yard scramble when he sees nothing downfield for 10 seconds. So, but all that aside, I have been very, very impressed with how our defense has looked, and with all the injuries, like you said, the depth, stepping up, dudes stepping up. Pepe is just a freak and somebody who has really shown themselves this year, which has been awesome to see. So, yeah, absolute monster. So I feel good, man. I mean, if we get the Bo Nix, even if we get the Bo Nix last week against Arizona, I feel really, really good about our chances on that side of the ball.
I feel that 100%, man. This is a good team, honestly. I'll pull up some of the stats here so we can talk about them. But so Oregon, they're averaging 282.6 passing yards a game, 19th in the entire country. Where Utah's defense is for passing defense is looking at 56 in the country at 224.8 yards per game. And like we just commented on, that is mainly because of our defensive line earlier in the season having troubles getting back there, containing, getting pressure. How are you feeling about that? How do you feel our pass defense is going to match up against you? And to be fair, we're doing a much better job recently than we were. Say what you will about the talent of the teams. Jaden DeLora can buy time in the pocket. We made him look like he had no business on the field with us. So how do you feel about that matchup?
100%. You nailed it. Seeing him dance around, he looked way better against Oregon than he did against us. Like we absolutely put a nail in that coffin. So I honestly feel good. We've got the momentum on our side going in. They clearly don't, which you can spin as a pro or a con either way. But I'm feeling good, man. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I really am. Even before all this Bo Nix stuff started leaking today, I've just felt good about it all week.
Yeah, I feel like Bo Nix is for sure playing. I would be shocked. I mean, who knows? But it's weird how Dan Lanning's talking about him. Like, if he really wasn't playing, wouldn't you hide it a little more? Like, he's just like, we're hoping for the best. It's like, what are you talking about, dude?
Yeah, come on, get out of here with that. Yeah, I'm right there with you. It almost, when I saw the first tweet, I don't even know who tweeted it, but it was the YouTube clip of the Oregon kid saying next man up, whatever, Bo's out. My first thought initially was like, there's no shot that this is real. There's absolutely no shot. But again, even before all of this, like I just have felt good. Like seeing obviously Bo Nix is amazing. Like I'm not gonna lie, week one, again, it was against Georgia, but I'm like, that kind of sucks. Like Bo's gonna ride off into the sunset in his career at Oregon. Because I loved him at Auburn. Like I've been a big fan. I think Bo Nix is a hell of a football player, but that week one, I'm like, that's a bummer. And then somebody just commented on as well, but that game against Washington State, Wazoo had that game in the bag. 100%
it was over. I remember watching that, and you were like, oh, wow, Washington State's pretty damn good. Oregon's probably a little overrated. Like, this was early in the year.
Yep. And that was my exact thought. I'm like, wow, like Wazoo's quarterback is a stud, and I've never heard of him before. And I literally turned the game off because I'm like, it's over. And they got a bunch of texts that was like, yo, you got to flip the game back on. But again, like Bo Nix doing what Bo Nix does. If he is completely 100% healthy, then I'm worried going into this game. I'm not trying to be the homer who's saying like, yeah, I'm feeling great, but he's going to, even if he plays, he's going to be banged up. Like, we saw what happened. I honestly, when he got hit, I thought it was his shoulder. I didn't even think about his ankle or his foot or whatever it is. But yeah, man, I don't know. Alex nailed it too. Like, just our depth in the secondary, like seeing these young guys step up. When RJ was out with his targeting, like seeing dudes fill in meaningful minutes and actually play. Like, it can't do anything but make us feel good as Utes fans about like, wow, okay, clearly the direction our program's been heading the last while has been in a good direction. But I mean, heaven forbid we lose a good chunk of the guys who walked last week. Then it's like, okay, you know what? I honestly feel good about what we've seen so far from some of the dudes who will step in.
Yeah, and if we do lose a bunch of talent, I feel like we really will be a very attractive transfer portal destination. I mean,
yeah,
seriously, I feel like if you're like a good player or a really athletic player, Utah is like the spot. It's like, you're going to get rounded out and you're going to get coached up super well. I mean, look how good our freaking backups are, dude. It is legit wild how good.
Yeah.
Like Yasmin is, you know, he has his problems, but it's like he's a fourth string guy on our team.
Yeah. For a 4th-string tight end to come in and like actual like make big plays and game-changing plays like that, like you can't ask for more than that. If he had that his very first catch, the really long one, I forget who it was against, but if he has that all season, it's like, you know what? He did more than we could have asked for. And so everything else is just the cherry on top for him. But no, I agree. And I want to touch into this for a second, if you're cool with it.
Yeah. Cool. Go
the
for
transfer portal stuff. How do we not go to any SEC school and hit up even their 2nd-string kicker and say, hey, look, we're a pretty good team. You've heard about us. We are lacking here big time. Come play. You'll play right away. Like, yeah, you mentioned it earlier with Alex, but that's one of my favorite. I mean, it's funny now, but whenever we kick the ball on a kickoff into the end zone, it's like, honestly, it's hilarious, but it's something to cheer about now, because every time it's like, I'd much rather have a touchback than other teams start with the ball in the 40, because that's what was happening.
I remember when it happened against Arizona. I think that was the first one, and the whole crowd just stood up like cheering. It was funny. And I'm sure there were people that didn't follow the team a ton, and they were like, why is everyone cheering? That's awesome.
I loved it.
So going back to the defense, man, a big thing that I think is a question mark for me, and surprisingly enough, Utah is actually rushing defense. We're 37th, so we're above average there. If you watched every game, you would guess the opposite, that our pass defense, at least for me, that our pass defense is better than rush defense. Oregon, and the majority of our rushing yards against our defense has come against good teams. I mean, don't forget about UCLA. They just carved us up, and and a lot of that number is exaggerated. It's exaggerated by the bad games, but it's also exaggerated by the good. I mean, don't forget Arizona State had 6 yards rushing against us. So
amazing.
And then rushing offense, Oregon's number 10 in the country at 236. How do you think we fare there, man? How do you think we're going to hang there?
Yeah. So one stat that popped out to me, I had a buddy send this to me, Pick 6 previews, tweeted it out. And because, again, we kind of found ourselves complaining just about our defense, where it was after the USC game, where we were grateful for a win, but at the same time, as we mentioned 100 times, like Williams just sat there and kind of bounced around the pocket. They scored on big plays. So it was really frustrating. So seeing this stat absolutely stunned me. They measured negative plays, obviously tackles for loss of sacks, with the pace of play factored in. Because when our offense, we're so slow out of the gate, like kind of shocking and alarmingly slow out of the gate offensively.
Yeah, the whole team.
But once
the defense lets up plays, like the whole team.
It takes us a full quarter to wake up, and I don't know why, but for whatever reason, when we do wake up, it is full steam ahead, and our offense just it clicks. So this stat, comparing negative plays with the pace of play, the most aggressive and disruptive defenses, this was through week 10, we're top 10 in the entire country.
Really?
We're behind Ohio State. We're behind Michigan, Clemson, like good schools. So to see this absolutely shocked me. But then I kind of took a step back and was like, okay, you know what? When our offense is rolling, I mean, our defense is just, again, they're on the field more because our offense is clicking. So I don't know, to see a stat like that kind of made me take a step back and be like, all right, you know what? Maybe I need to be a little bit more positive. But yeah, what you said is absolutely fascinating. With the stats, I would have never guessed that as far as the run defense and pass defense. That doesn't make any sense.
I'm with you. And you know, it's funny. No one else has talked about that today, how slow we start. And I think that's something I haven't brought up in the stream is like, that's a big factor of how this game goes. Can we survive the first quarter? Like, can we? Yeah. Cause I think we're going to start slow. I mean, it's almost every game. Stanford. Even Stanford, we didn't look good in the first quarter. And it's like, at least like, don't let them get any significant lead when the first quarter. Like, don't forget USC 21-7. Like it was, and thank God that was a penalty.
No kidding. No kidding.
But it's like, if we can survive that first little chunk of play, once we figure it out, and I don't know if that's coaching or players not getting their head in the game. I don't know what it is, but surviving, that's a big deal.
You're right. And it's that the comparison can always be made, right? It's like heavyweight fight. You just got to survive those few punches because you know they're going to come. Oregon's they're a big play team, like similar to USC, similar to UCLA. Like those big plays killed us. And it always seemed like they'd come on third down. We'd stop them and be a third and long. And then all of a sudden they'd bust a big play. And those are daggers. So you're exactly right. Weather the storm for the first little bit, get through the first quarter because you know that big plays are coming from Oregon. Whether they got Bo Nix or not, you know it's going to happen. But yeah, I'm shocked that nobody else has brought that up because it is last year we kind of did the same thing, but the difference between last year and this year is like how the year started. We had no expectations, so everything good that happened was like, wow, this is amazing. And this year we kind of this year we're stepping in. It's like, okay, no, we know what kind of football team we are, so we have a little bit higher standard. And the slow starts, man. I don't know. Like you said, I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it just takes the players a little bit to shake it off. I have no clue, but it's wild because you nailed it. It's every game.
Yeah, it really is odd. And I think if I remember correctly, it was happening last year too. Yep. And it's funny you bring up last year. It's funny to look back on that, you know, like remember how bad you felt about this team 3 games in? Like our only win was the Weber State, and we had 2 losses to teams, at least teams that looked like that at the time. So I think about last year all the time, man. That was out of every year of my life of being a Utah football fan, last year has to be right up there at the top. But again, just starting from it was wild, starting from nothing, and then obviously going through everything the team went through and switching quarterbacks. And I remember at the start of the season, credit to my boy Ryan Evans, because he's the one who told me this right out of the gate. It's like, it's very alarming for me. Yep, here we go. Charlie Brewer. Very alarming for me that Cameron Rising is named a captain, but he's not the starting quarterback. Like that's weird to me. And I'm like, I'm like, you know what? That's kind of a weird thought. And then honestly, the first game, it's like, great. He did. And going into the season too, our whole thought was like, wow, like Charlie Brewer is a slinger. The dude absolutely slings it. So our whole thought was like, wow, we're going to see a different Utah team that isn't run first because we've got a quarterback who's just going to sling it. And then how everything he was pretty damn good at Baylor. Like he was a good quarterback.
Yeah. He was great at Baylor. And I don't know whether it's a fit thing. I have no clue. I mean, I hope he's doing well. Good riddance. It worked out.
Yeah. Best of luck.
Yeah. Best of luck. I hope he's doing great. But yeah, that game, it was San Diego State, I believe, when Cam came in and we ended up losing an OT. But that game was like, holy moly, like this team's capable of something. So to lose that game in OT the way we did with the whole 2-point conversion was super frustrating. But then you nailed it. We were trailing in almost every game last year as well. And then it just seemed like some stuff started to click. And I absolutely love to. Everybody rallied around Cam. Like clearly he was the captain for a reason, right? And everybody trusted that. So yeah, I don't know. It's just weird that the turn we've made from last year to this year, where it's no expectations and
you know,
our
you're
team's
right. I said
terrible
after
to
the
now.
first 3 games that there was like you
Mhm.
felt bad. No, I do remember now you bring it up. It was San Diego State, how damn good Cam looked at the end of that. You were like,
Yes.
yeah, we lost, but you guys should have seen this quarterback that came in. He was killing it. He was,
Yep.
like,
It was
he almost
amazing.
won us the game.
Yeah, there were plays, and it still every game that Cam played last year, I like couldn't wrap my head around the fact that Cam is mobile, and obviously now we know who he is. But seeing him come in San Diego State, I'm like, this dude, he doesn't look like he should be mobile, and he's stretching out, he's taking hits, he's stretching for the first down. Like, I'm with you. After seeing that, I'm like, okay, there's something here. We've got something here, and clearly that's where we're at now. Yeah, obviously.
No, yeah, I'm with you. That was it's been a wild 2 seasons. And then you think about how the end of that season went. Ohio State, we're up 28-14. I remember my wife was like, how's the game going? She doesn't know a ton about football, but she's like, how's the game going? And I was like, it's going well. We're winning 28-14, but you don't feel great about it.
It feels, it doesn't feel good. Yep.
They were scoring every time they had the ball.
I said the same thing. So I was there with my brother and his wife, and it said the same thing. I'm like, look, the last thing that we want to get in is a shootout. Like, it's Ohio State. And then obviously with Bernard having to play both sides of the ball and everything, like, that's no fault of his. But yeah, you're right. It's like hard to even comprehend that last season happened the way it did. Like, I genuinely remember that first Oregon game at home where we had the entire day tailgating everything. We had this debate back and forth of like, hey, they're not going to throw a game, but if we lose, then Oregon's going to the playoff, and then we're shoo-ins for the Rose Bowl anyway. So like, what
I remember that.
Yeah, and then obviously the first half happens. It's like, I feel like a total clown for even entertaining any thought like that. And yeah, it just, I don't know, man. What a fun time.
Punt return. Ooh,
that's absolutely. I'm not exaggerating. I don't drink. I'm pretty positive I blacked out just from like endorphins, excitement, screaming. I jumped down like 2 rows of people in front of me. We're all just high-fiving, hugging each other.
I was watching it at home, man, and I remember like you could feel it like through the TV. It got like it was probably because the microphones weren't ready for it. They didn't expect it. Like they probably had them turn. The gain was up high, and then all of a sudden the whole TV's shaking, dude. It was it was so cool.
Absolutely amazing. That's for sure one of the loudest. I've been to some loud games there, but that has to be top 3 easiest, loudest that Rice Eccles ever been. But yeah, man, what a ride it's been these last 2 years. So it's Alex mentioned this too, like this Oregon team, they'll always have athletic dudes, they'll always have speed, that's what they're known for. But now just putting in Bo Nix, who again, bless his heart, not saying anything bad about him, but their quarterback last year, Brown, like what a huge step up, right? So it's you get this Oregon team. Yeah, obviously they're missing Thibodeau and they're missing some other guys, but it's Oregon and they're a pretty damn good football team. So I don't know. I like how we match up, but I feel good, but this is easily the most nervous I've been all season about going into a game not close.
I agree a lot. And you know what else I feel is no one's talking about is like this Oregon defense, which we did very well against, is very similar and without Kayvon Thibodeau. Like let's not forget this. Like this is probably a slightly worse team than they were. But outside of that, man, before we get out of here, my son.
Hey, what's up, dude?
Before we get out of here, man, can you tell us? What is your prediction for the game? What do you think the final score is?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think it's going to be high scoring. See you, dude. I am going. Oh man, I don't even know, dude.
He's pissed now.
He got his little 10 seconds. That's good. I am going us. I think we win. It's going to be really close, nail biter throughout the whole thing. I don't think one team's going to pull away. I think it's going to be back and forth the entire game. I've got us. I'm going to say 41-34. I think that's what I'm going with final score. It's a lot of points.
Yeah, and how do you think it goes? How do you think we get the points?
I think I fully expect Tavion to dominate. I really do. You can tell he's got that pep back. Obviously, he got so many carries, had a career high coming off of that. 100%. I think that we're just going to pick them apart like we do, short little passes, which I love. And I think Tavion's going to run all over them. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an awesome matchup. And Josh, thank you so much for coming on today, man. I appreciate it. This was awesome. I enjoyed talking to you. Anytime you want to, just let me know and you're welcome on. Okay, man?
Of course, brother. Anytime I get a chat, Utes football is a good day. So thank you for having me on, for real.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. Have a good one. Go Utes. All right. And I cut him off early. I've cut everybody off early. Sorry about that, man. Outside of that, though, guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I'll go calm down my son here in a second. He's not happy. He got taken out of the room. It was funny. You guys got to see my son. I am about to get out of here. Before I do, though, if you guys haven't already, if you guys want to win the Cam Rising signed auto out of 99, this is a beautiful card. Look at that freaking thing, dude. If you guys aren't about that card, I don't know. You just don't like sports cards. If you guys want to win that card, remember you got to like the video, you got to subscribe to the channel, and you got to comment. And that's whether you're watching this live or you're watching this after the fact. Comment what your questions are, and I'm going to pick the people that ask the best questions are going to be the ones the person is going to be the one that wins the card. And Tat's been here all night. Thank you so much, Tat. A bunch of you guys. Jack, you've been here basically all night, man. You guys are so awesome. I appreciate it a lot. Capisi, you've been here all night too, dude. And thanks so much for those super chats, guys. You guys are beyond generous. Seriously. I appreciate all the love, and I appreciate it. I hope this ultimate live show was everything you guys wanted. Honestly, I actually thought this was a pretty awesome time. I'm about to get out of here. So go Utes, and let's go beat Oregon this weekend. See you guys on Saturday.